Chapter 101. Huge amounts of lightsaber surged with the power of heaven and earth. The dark space was not blocked at all, it was completely melted by this sword. Modu's eyes turned sharply down, watching in horror that all the darkness disappeared. As his own independent space, the direct destruction also caused Modu's body to be severely injured. But that cut is still going on. No stagnation at all. Like the wrath of heaven and earth, the lightsaber slashed towards Modu. Everyone in Kamartaj saw this scene. Huge amounts of lightsabers slashed in the direction of Kamartaj, which was God's punishment. Its wrath. Everyone knelt in front of the lightsaber, begging for forgiveness. Even Caecilius watched this scene in horror. He knew that that location was where Mordu and Kamartaj's guests were. He knows exactly what Modu is 223. Such an attack, such power, was definitely created by that young man. No, that's definitely not a young man. How could young people have such terrifying power? It was definitely an old monster, a timeless, immortal old monster. Caecilius' eyes turned from fear to frenzy. He learned magic to save his dead wife and children. If the existence of Louis is really beyond birth, old age, sickness, and death, then he will always be. It is the ultimate faith. Caecilius knelt in Louis' direction, wild and excited. And Modu, who was facing the Earth Emperor Jean directly, almost fainted under such a huge power. No, facing the fear of death, Modu shouted loudly. But this kind of shout is so insignificant when facing Huang Tianwei. He couldn't even get up the idea of resistance. Those who were oppressed by the power of the Emperor's slash were vomiting blood and retreating. But nothing works. The sword was still cut down. Clang! The huge amounts of sound nearly deafened everyone. Everyone saw the Ancient One mage falling lightly, twisting a magic circle in one hand. Stand up to Dijon. Under the huge amounts of lightsaber, the magic circle seems insignificant and vulnerable. But only Louis saw that in the void, there were countless magic circles hidden in the void working together to resist the attack of the Dijon. But even so, Ancient One's body was still constantly retreating. Between them, Ancient One opened the alien space with one hand. The space is full of gorgeous and fantastic colors, and there is also an indescribable terrifying atmosphere. Huge amounts of shadows were almost cast upon the earth, bringing huge amounts of terror. Dormammu. Louis recognized this monster in a different dimension at a glance, and sacrificed his body to the dark monster. Louis said that it was as strong as Ancient One, how could it not be able to withstand the Dijon of this period? It turned out that he felt the crisis of Kamartaj when fighting against Dormammu, and rushed back from the alien space. I saw Ancient One nodded regretfully to Louis, and with the magic array hidden in the space in his hands, they moved together to transfer the target of Dijon to the alien space. Dijon was like a wild horse running wild, rushing and slashing towards Dormammu in a different dimension. At this moment, it doesn't matter whether he is the Lord of Darkness or an indescribable creature. Dijon's space lock completely locked Dormammu. Sword light burst. Dijon's lightsaber was broken inch by inch, but half of the blade still cut into Dormammu's body. Boom! All the power explodes in an instant. Dormammu's wailing came from the alien space. Damn human, I remember you, wait, my great dark king will find you sooner or later, and make you suffer from the burning pain of the flames. Louis, who was the person involved, rubbed his nose and said very impolitely, he tooey. Dormammu growled loudly, cursed, and raged. Then Ancient One took the opportunity to repel them in the alien space, and sealed the alien space again. Thank you, Mr. Louis, but... Ancient One also thanked Louis with a sigh of relief. It was only after feeling the power of Dijon just now that Ancient One thought of using it to distract Dormammu so that he could find an opportunity to seal it again. Unexpectedly, the effect is so good, the power of Louis's move can actually hurt Dormammu. However, this also caused Louis to be hated by Dormammu. It's okay, it's just a different kind hiding in a different space. Louis was not worried about the threat of Dormammu at all. Dormammu, who couldn't appear in a different space, asked his own followers to cause a little trouble for Louis. As for those believers, whether it can enter New York is still unknown. Let S.H.I.E.L.D solve these crises. Seeing that the Ancient One was back, Louis felt that the relationship between himself and someone should be resolved. Click. A stone was crushed by Louis stepping on it. The Emperor's sword was held by Louis in his hand, only an inch away from the center of Modu's eyebrows. No, don't, this is Kamartaj, you can't kill me. Modu shouted loudly, hiding behind Ancient One. Ancient One frowned, but still stood in front of Modu. Mr. Lewis, no matter what Modu has done, can you look at my face? For your sake? What's so good about you? If you want to look good or not, and if you want pectoral muscles but not pectoral muscles, do you think you are an Asgardian on Earth, and someone will take care of your face? If you really care about your apprentice, let him be a common man in the next life. The magic world is too dangerous for stupid people. Lewis sneered and stabbed out with a sword. Clang! There was only horror in Modu's eyes, but the sound of metal colliding made him heave a sigh of relief. Ancient One's magic circle blocked Lewis' casual sword. Mr. Lewis, this is camartage. Ancient One was a little annoyed. If Lewis really killed Mordo here, he would have stepped on Camartage's head. If you can't even protect your disciples, then there is no need for Camartage to exist. Therefore, Modu cannot die now. 2.5 Lewis withdrew his sword and looked at Ancient One indifferently. The light bloomed on his body, making Modu tremble in fright. But after a while, the armor on Lewis' body was lifted. He was whistling, still with a careless expression, and said a little frivolously, as long as I am allowed by the normal rules, it will be no problem to kill him. 11 Ancient One didn't speak, but his eyes said everything. Okay, I understand, I'll give you a face. What I said before was out of temper. I hope Master Ancient One will not be angry. Starting tomorrow, I will learn magic from Master Ancient One. Lewis looked at Modu, his body was trembling. Then, in the open and above-board discussion, Lewis made a gun gesture with one hand, aiming at the roundness. Boom! Kill you! Chapter 102. When Lewis' eyes said the word kill, it became extremely evil. Even Ancient One felt a chill. As for Modu, it felt like a certain nerve in the brain was pierced in half. Rearrange a room for me, and I'll be living here for the time being. Lewis originally wanted to go back to the room to live in, but he didn't think about it until he saw an article of ruins. The room was completely destroyed by himself. Ancient One's eyes softened, but luckily Lewis didn't continue to argue. Otherwise, Ancient One didn't dare to say what it really did to Lewis. Glancing at Modu indifferently, Ancient One shook his head helplessly. He already knew about this disciple. The heart is high and arrogant, and the ability is there, but the spirit is still a bit short. For the position of Supreme Mage, Gendu is really not a suitable candidate. Ancient One Mage said softly, Modu, go back, think it through in a month. Modu glanced at Ancient One with a sigh of relief, as if this was not protecting him. If it is not protected, Lewis may kill himself at any time. Caecilius, rearrange a room for Camartage's guests. Caecilius heard Ancient One's voice, he put away the frenzy in his eyes, and became extremely calm. Faith, sometimes does not need to be on the surface all the time. Warm candles. Fragrant tea. Almost exactly the same room, Lewis walked in very satisfied. It seems that Caecilius also has intentions, this exact same room, unexpectedly let him arrange one for Lewis. Mr. Lewis, you can come to me directly if you need anything. Caecilius said respectfully. After speaking, he quietly exited the room. Lewis glanced at him suspiciously, always feeling that Caecilius's attitude had a 180-degree reversal. Obviously, he still looked indifferent before. It seems that it is still necessary to show one's own strength in a timely manner. Louis spent his first night in Camartage with peace of mind. But this night was a night of fear for Mordo, a night of faith for Caecilius, and a night of prayer for the other disciples. Lewis was the only one who slept soundly until dawn. Heartless people, sleep quality is high. Early the next morning, Lewis was woken up by the training of the disciples outside. A Camartage practice suit was placed at the door, and the temperature was kept by a magic circle, so that it was still warm when it was taken. Lewis changed his clothes and came to the place where everyone practiced, where a group of people practiced weird postures. But in these postures, the pulsation of body muscles and meridians will be brought about. They use this to sense the energy between heaven and earth, and then achieve the point of depicting a magic circle. Mordo was imprisoned, and the person in charge of supervision became Caecilius. When he saw Lewis appearing, Caecilius walked over immediately, and said respectfully, Mr. Lewis, we have to wait for a while for breakfast, and it won't be open until the morning training is over. Lewis nodded, watching the training of other disciples. Seeing that Lewis was interested in these, Caecilius immediately said, these are the most basic exercises for the disciples of Camartage. so as to understand the power of heaven and earth, and also the power of oneself that is familiar. Louis jumped and fell from a high place, smashing the ground into a pothole. Louis learned the movements of these disciples and began to practice, but every time he moved, he felt a little unnatural and unaccustomed to his body. But in the eyes of others, Louis' performance is simply the devil. The movement is very stable, every time you punch or move, it will drive the air between the sky and the earth. After a while, there was a gust of wind in the training square. Everyone was far away, watching Louis' performance. Caecilius was even more sure that Louis was an old monster. When a strong wind rises on the ground, it can create waves. Louis felt the restlessness in his heart more and more, and pushed all his strength forward. Boom! The huge amounts of roar startled Louis himself. You can see the originally flat square, but now it has been completely destroyed by Louis. Every floor tile was lifted and broken. The incision is smooth and flat. Like being cut by a sharp knife. Is this the power of the wind, or my own power? Seeing that everyone was standing aside, Louis immediately ran over. Seeing Louis approaching, everyone took a step back in unison. Louis' performance is really horrible, a monster through and through. Caecilius also swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Louis' performance, even if it was an old monster, was also an old monster without magical power. But such a force, it's frightening. Take me to Ancient One, Louis said. The movements these disciples practiced were too simple, and there was no way to help Louis control his body. Louis' constitution still has a lot of room for improvement, but the only thing it lacks is control. That would throw Louis' constitution out of control. Caecilius immediately took Louis to the top of the Himalayas. Ancient One is sitting upright here, and the airflow between heaven and earth seems to be obeying Ancient One's orders. Louis has no doubt that he has the ability to fly in the sky. Caecilius left, and the conversation between the two bosses was not within his reach. Ancient One didn't speak, neither did Louis, both of them were doing quietly. Finally, Louis couldn't bear it anymore, and shouted, "How long are you going to sit in 413? Ancient One's complexion changed slightly, he shook his head helplessly, and said softly, "Mr. Louis, what's the matter? I said yesterday that I want to learn magic from you. The basics of learning magic are the same. First control the body well, and then feel the world. When you feel both kinds of power, you can start the connection of magic." Louis waved his hand, and the airflow that originally surrounded Ancient One surrounded him. This. Ancient One froze for a moment. Louis' perception of the forces of nature is no weaker than himself. Louis stepped out. A footprint appeared on the ground, smooth and flat. There is no remaining rupture due to force extension. Ancient One's frown deepened. Louis has met both requirements now, but can't control magic? When the two powers are used at the same time, my power will be out of control. Louis said. Come and try. Ancient One became curious. She had never seen Louis in such a situation. Since Ancient One wanted to see it, Louis began to repeat the previous demonstration without saying a word. The power gathered around him is getting stronger and stronger, but it is also getting more and more irritable. It looks like a pot of water that may boil at any time. But got stuck on that point. Chapter 103. Louis felt his own power and the power of nature began to conflict. Until he couldn't control it anymore, he bombarded out with all his strength. But there was no sound at all. This force was completely dispelled by Ancient One with a magic circle and sent into a different dimension. There, Dormammu, who had been sleeping soundly, was once again provoked. There is a familiar aura that belongs to Louis on this force. Damn human, I must tear you to pieces. Dormammu was furious in impotence. How many years, except that Ancient One can suppress him by blocking the connection between the real world and the alien space? How long has he not felt the provocation from a little human being? It's not good to use me to draw hatred. Although Louis didn't care about the threat of Dormammu, this product entered the alien space, but the same, it was also trapped by the alien space. As long as it dares to appear, is it true that Odin and these Shendu are just for nothing? Sorry, it's easy. Ancient One said apologetically, with a hint of cunning in his eyes. She couldn't see through Louis' future, but she saw a kick in the future in Louis' eyes before. Dormammu and his ilk are nothing more than a piece of cake for the future Louis. Take it as my reward for explaining your confusion. Ancient One explained. He floated in front of Louis, and carefully felt the airflow around Louis' body. These natural forces were quite friendly to Louis. But the manic power in Louis was at odds with the natural energy of these ties. That's why Louis couldn't achieve the unity of nature and man. There is a special power in your body that prevents you from entering the realm of harmony between man and nature. As Ancient One said, Yi suddenly came to photograph Louis. Louis wanted to resist subconsciously, but Ancient One's hand passed through Louis' defense like air and bombarded Louis' heart. Snapped. The soft voice was like flicking off the sleeves casually. In Louis' eyes, it was another world, and his body was still standing in place. But the soul has been out of the body, and everything that the naked eye sees is a world built by special factors and elements. This is the world that only the soul state can see. In Louis' eyes, his body was surrounded by a group of friendly forces. But he was turned away, and a tyrannical force took root in his body. It's not my strength. Louis said in a deep voice, his complexion darkened. When exactly did such a power zone actually occupy one's body? Could it be the sequelae of gamma-ray radiation? No, if that was the case, it might have erupted long ago. Louis' soul suddenly returned to his body, and he felt his body. Louis looked a little puzzled. That power doesn't belong to me, Louis said. No, that power is yours. Ancient One shook his head and said. But... Louis couldn't tell why, he felt a familiar atmosphere on top of that power, as if he once had it, but now he lost it. That force appeared yesterday, otherwise you would not be able to cut that sword. Ancient One revealed the result by comparing the breadths of the two forces. Ancient One's complexion was a bit ugly, and when Ancient One said this, he also felt the familiarity. But where does this power come from? This is your own strength, don't resist it, learn to accept it. Ancient One didn't give a specific solution, and she really didn't have a good solution. Louis' power is different from that of Ancient One and even the power of this world. Louis didn't speak, but the tyrannical power in his body still existed. Louis was thinking about how it came about. Yesterday. Mordo's provocation. Illusion. Louis' eyes gradually lit up, and his power was inspired by Gendu's illusion. I suggest you go to the library. There are countless books there. Maybe you will find what you need, just as some compensation. Ancient One left a small magic circle on Louis' body. With this, the king will not stop you. Louis nodded, and returned to Camartage with the help of the hole created by space magic. Call out. The space magic disappeared suddenly, and Yin Yi shook his head as he watched Louis disappear. I took Eye of Agamotto out of my arms. Eye of Agamotto at the moment is still vibrating. This kind of vibration became more and more obvious when Louis was still there, but Gu never brought it out. Eye of Agamotto obviously chose Louis, but Ancient One didn't understand the purpose of Eye of Agamotto's choice. Relax, if there is a chance, I will let him take you, but not now. Ancient One said softly. There was a peculiar melody in the voice. Eye of Agamotto seemed to understand it, and stopped responding, as if falling into a deep sleep. Ancient One also sighed. Who are you, king without past, present, or future? Louis came to Camartage's library with the mark of the magic circle given by Ancient One. This is probably the most complete magic library in the world. It not only records magic books, but also countless classics. No wonder Camartage became a place of pilgrimage for a scholar of magic. Because it has everything that a place of pilgrimage should have. Here lies the mighty Asgardian of Earth, and the knowledge that is boundless. Louis was stopped at the door of the library, and the person who stopped him was the librarian Wang. A person who looks very simple and honest, but the magical power in his body is no less than that of Modu. Is this the sweeping monk from Legendary? Louis showed the magic circle given by Ancient One. Wang was stunned for a moment, and felt, Qian Zhao, the breath of Ancient One on it. Very new magic circle. Are you Camartage's guest? Wang asked. Wang had heard about Louis who came to Camartage yesterday and caused a lot of troubles. Early this morning, the entire comité was talking about Louis. Hearing Wang's question, Louis smiled and said, I'm not counting as a guest, I'm also here to learn magic. Learning magic will not make such a big commotion on the first day, and Mage is very optimistic about you. Wang drew a magic circle out of thin air. Two small magic circles complement each other. Until it gradually disappears. This is the most correct way to confirm. You can go in, and the magic circle in your hand can freely read the private collection of Ancient One Mage. In the past few decades, you are the first person to obtain this right. Wang said to Louis. He was reminding Louis to cherish this opportunity. Chapter 104. Thanks. Hearing Wang's reminder, Louis smiled, waved his hand and walked into the Camartage library. The breath of magic is unusually strong here. It seems that every book contains the power of magic. The most eye-catching thing is the 2 books in the library, and the magic power occupies almost 70% of the entire library. The Book of Emperor Weishan, and the Book of Darkness. Louis took out both books and flipped through them casually. With Ancient One's magic circle, Louis will not be hindered. But Wang still kindly said, I suggest focusing on one book, chewing more than one can chew. I'm just looking, I'm not here today for them. Louis smiled, and put the 2 magic tomes that would drive everyone crazy to the outside world back to their original positions. His purpose is not yet magic. He is now desperate to find a solution to his body. What are you looking for? I am more familiar with this place. I'm looking for a book on the realm of the unity of man and nature, but there seems to be something wrong with my body. Hey! Wang looked at Louis' body suspiciously, but didn't see any problems. I don't understand, but what you want may be found in that pile of books. Why Wang took Louis to 510 and found a pile of books that the other party shared. This is not a bookshelf, it looks like it is put together in a mess. All the ancient books are placed here, but because the primordial is old, recently it is necessary to use magic to strengthen the paper to avoid damage. Wang explained. Then I'll look for it here, thank you. Louis nodded. Sit casually on the ground, take a book and flip through it. This book is about the human body. It seems to be an ancient language, but here it makes Louis fully understandable. Seeing that Louis had entered a serious state, Wang also returned to his position. Louis entered a special state of trance, flipping through books faster and faster. The whole person entered a mysterious state, and the magic factor of the entire library was beating around Louis. Wang stared dumbfounded at Louis' performance, and finally shook his head helplessly. There are some geniuses, but there is no way to compare them. Brigade. After a night of rest, Modu's mental state has recovered a lot. Now he was ashamed of his previous behavior again, and was actually frightened by Louis's eyes like that. It's a shame. Louis definitely relied on that treasure to have such power. Modu felt that what he thought was right, all of Louis' abilities came from treasures. Louis without treasure is at the mercy of others. I must find a way to take Louis' treasure. The flames ignited again in Modu's eyes, which was the anger of revenge. He wanted Louis to kneel down and beg for mercy, and beheaded Louis fiercely. However, the current Modu has no way to leave the confinement room at all. What Ancient One Mage said is the truth in Kamete. Modu even hated Ancient One Mage in his heart. I originally studied black magic, but Ancient One majored in white magic. This made Modu feel that the reason why he could not inherit the position of Supreme Mage must be because Ancient One discriminated against black magic. Isn't it just 1 month? In a month's time, it will be your death, Louis. In the confinement room, the power of black magic is expanding, and even becoming stronger and stronger. Modu's whole body was soaked by the power of black magic, becoming extremely terrifying. But outside the confinement room, no one can feel the changes in Modu. Louis was originally in the library, looking for a way to restore his body. But when reading these ancient books, the power of these ancient books actually collided with Louis' body and resonated. Although these books written by ancient sages have no magical power, they contain ancient will. These ancient, wills seem to be extremely hostile to the power inside Louis' body. He began to try his best to help Louis suppress that force. What the king saw, thought that Louis felt the unity of man and nature. In fact, it was just the ancient will fighting against the power in Louis' body, and Louis felt like a huge melting pot inside his body. The two forces are fighting, erupting, raging. Don't stop. Lu cursed. Plus what do these forces think of their bodies? Dual field? Louis' soul jumped out of the body, and the collision of the two forces could be clearly seen. Even after hearing Louis curse, the two forces are still fighting relentlessly, and Si Tai has no intention of answering Louis. This is the body of labor and capital, and I am in charge of everything. Louis' expression became indifferent. Being tormented by two forces in his body, should he still mess around? The realm of harmony between man and nature is to control one's own power. What Louis had to do was to learn how to control that power, but these ancient wills stepped forward to make trouble. Louis has to believe, and he also believes in the emperor in his body. Instead of these ancient wills that do not distinguish between enemy and friend. Louis' soul returned to his body, and the anger against these ancient wills resonated with the power in his body. At this moment, Louis suddenly felt the key to the unity of man and nature. Could it be that you need to conform to the psychology of this power to complete the unity of man and nature? Louis was puzzled, but changed his mind and said nothing. The power in his body crushed the doctor towards the ancient will. What do these bastards think of their bodies? Did you agree? Feel free to drill into your body. The tyrannical power became like a lamb under Louis' anger, and Louis easily took control of this power. The two forces that were originally fighting against each other, now with Louis joining, it's like having a general in the army. Completely crush the ancient will. Louis could clearly feel this force in rage, plundering, and biting. Swallow the ancient will one bite at a time. All those ancient knowledge entered Louis's mind, and all the insights made Louis' aura become ancient and vicissitudes. The wisdom that can be obtained without studying is really very comfortable. Louis became more and more satisfied with his power. As for these ancient wills that triggered the real use of this power, Louis showed a sneer. To thank you for your help, all surrender to me. Frightened, the ancient will was swallowed by Louis and became Louis' nourishment. Chapter 105. Ancient wisdom flooded Louis' brain. Louis completed the resonance of physical strength and natural strength in the first place. Heaven and man are one. This is an essential factor in learning magic. Let your own power and natural power perfectly combine. After Louis controlled his own power of unknown origin, he completed the state of unity between man and nature in an instant. The forces of nature dance, and the magic of the library cheers. Wang stared dumbfounded at the change in Louis. This is the child of destiny, otherwise how could he have such a terrifying ability? Countless magic pages are flying, and the Book of Wise Handy and the Book of Darkness are also about to move. Clang! A resonant sound sounded. Louis' hands each controlled a magic circle, guiding the power in his body. Soothe the restlessness around you. Finally, when all the natural forces return to calm, magic is also content with loneliness. Louis opened his eyes, and what he saw was an ancient book that had been turned into a mass of ashes. The ancient will inside was absorbed by Louis. Even if the power of magic is protecting the books, the fundamental power supporting the books has disappeared, and the magic has lost its carrier. This, I shouldn't have to pay for it. Louis looked at this mass of ashes, and always felt that he was self-defense no matter what. In the end, accidentally, the gang under the killer. You are the victim yourself. Seeing this situation, Wang was stunned for a moment. The loss of such a large number of books made it a little difficult for him to accept. At this moment, the voice of Ancient One spread in Wang's ears. It's okay, these ancient books have found someone who can inherit them, let him go. Wang nodded and said, no need to compensate, treat these inheritances well. As soon as Louis heard this kind of words, he knew that what happened here was definitely cleared up by Ancient One. Louis, who had completed the state of harmony between man and nature, did not stop to rest at all. He felt that his condition was better than ever, so he blocked his eyes from the Book of Wise Handy and the Book of Darkness. The most powerful white magic and defensive magic are recorded here. The content of magic can only be used for defense, not for offense. The old tortoise's shell is gone. Louis glanced at it and complained. As a result, Wei Shandi's book had its own temper, and it was closed heavily, not wanting Louis to continue to open it. Well, you are a tempered magic book. Louis said helplessly. Looking at the Book of Darkness, the magic inside is more extreme, but the same offensive ability is also superb. Crash! The Book of Darkness showed Louis its recorded magic. There are both evil and good. The Book of Wise Handy is like two extremes, the kind that will quarrel when they meet. When Louis came to Kamartaj, he planned to jump to Mars with the help of Kamartaj's sling ring. But when he got here, Louis discovered that the magic here seemed to correspond to the armor of Kamen Rider Wizard. Both sides are melee mage. If that's the case, Kamen Rider Wizard's production may really depend on Kamartaj's magic. The look of excitement on Louis' face. I immersed all my thoughts in the two books. Whether it is white magic or black magic, in Louis' opinion, they are all magic constructed using natural forces. For example, the dark magic used by Modu only uses the natural power representing darkness, and there is no difference in essence. Shadow and night represent the power of darkness. While absorbing knowledge, Louis wanted to use the power of these magics. A wave of magic was born between the hands, and a small magic circle was carved on the ground. Louis felt that the power in his body and the power of nature jointly built this magic circle. A ball of flame emerged from the magic circle. Sitsaizi. The water was poured on the flame, and blue smoke came out. Louis looked up, and saw Wang looking at him seriously. The library prohibits the use of magic that will destroy books, it is very dangerous. Wang said seriously. Okay, I know, I'm going out to experiment. Louis kept some magic in his heart. Then I left the library. Except for the usual classes, the disciples of Kamartage were free to move around and train by themselves. People can be seen everywhere building magic circles and using magic to fight and communicate. Mr. Louis. Caecilius saw Louis and walked over. What's wrong? Louis asked. Caecilius is a complete villain in the movie, taking refuge in Dormammu and embracing the darkness. But the current Caecilius is not as bad as it is, and even just touched the magic. I just saw Mr. Louis looking around, is there anything I can help? Caecilius was very respectful. It was faith, but Caecilius didn't want to bother Louis with his fanaticism. The so-called believers are to help their beliefs solve problems, not bring troubles. I just learned some magic, and I want to find someone to try it out, Louis said. He always felt that Caecilius had a different attitude towards him. It's crazy and crazy. Did Mr. Louis learn magic so quickly? Caecilius was taken aback. How long has it been since Louis went from not knowing magic to mastering it? To feel the magical power in Louis' body again, it seems, as if much higher than myself. Sure enough, according to my own belief, Mr. Louis must be an old monster who has lived for a long time. Caecilius thought in his heart, his eyes became more and more respectful. Only by following such a strong man will the possibility of resurrecting his wife and children be more likely. Louis didn't know that his casual words would remind Caecilius so much. He just wants to find someone to practice well now. Caecilius, would you like to exchange magic with me? Louis asked. Me? Really? Can I really? Caecilius was a little ecstatic. Mr. Louis invited me, he invited me. Definitely, are you good at white magic or black magic? Louis asked. Isn't it only possible to learn white magic? Caecilius was taken aback. Louis almost forgot that without the permission of the Ancient One, all the disciples of Kamartage were only allowed to touch white magic. Then I will use black magic to attack, and you will use white magic to defend. That's a crime. Caecilius nodded vigorously, the magic circle in his hand condensed and blocked in front of him. It looks like a very solid defensive magic, which makes people's eyes shine. Louis' magical power turned into a long sword and slashed towards Caecilius. The collision of magic has stirred up a special battle wave XI. Chapter 106. Caecilius' ability is very good, otherwise Ancient One would not accept him as a disciple. On top of white magic, Caecilius' grasp is very solid. Louis' magic sword slashed on Caecilius' defensive shield, only the sound of metallic impact could be heard. Louis' power forced Caecilius back again and again. But it is still difficult to break through Caecilius' defense. The battle between the two gradually attracted other disciples to watch. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, Louis didn't want to keep his hand anymore. A raging flame ignited on the magic sword, scorching Caecilius' defensive shield. The collision of magic is the mutual consumption of magic. Only magic can defeat magic. Caecilius's magic power was gradually insufficient, and he couldn't maintain the defensive shield, so he was kicked out by Louis, dodging the magic sword that was too late to stop. Click! The 363 floor tile that had just been refurbished was cut off by Louis, and the flames burned the floor tiles into black and scorched black. Caecilius looked at Louis gratefully. If Louis didn't keep his hand in time, I'm afraid I would have to lie in bed for 10 days and a half months. Ancient One stared at Louis, and she was also surprised that Louis could complete the training in such a fast time. And control it, very proficient. Caecilius was already very capable, but he still lost to Louis. Wang, what do you think? Ancient One asked. It's a very powerful ability, compatible with white magic and black magic, but I'm worried that if his mind is unstable, he will be disturbed by the outside world. Wang didn't continue. Mages' spiritual power is enough to allow their souls to explore the mysteries in the universe, but they will also be targeted by some evil. The biggest evil is Dormammu from the source in the other dimension, which is almost everywhere. That's impossible. He is a born king, and Dormammu is not in his eyes at all. Ancient One's tone was very relaxed. It seemed totally unconcerned that Louis would be affected by Dormammu. Wang froze for a moment, then nodded. He also felt a special temperament in Louis. It's like finding a boss in a group of common mobs. Louis is always so different. Both Wang and Ancient One looked away. The battle between the two of them is still too immature. Louis is also immature, but considering that this is the first day Louis learns magic. There was a shudder in Wang's heart. God knows what kind of terrifying achievements Louis will have in the future. Supreme Mage? Wang glanced at the top of the Himalayas where the Ancient One Mage was located. I'm afraid that is not the limit of Louis. On the square. Louis' victory over Caecilius surprised many of his disciples. This is offensive magic, only a few people will be agreed to learn offensive magic by Ancient One Mage. What can Louis do who came to Camartage only yesterday? This is everyone's initial thought. But after seeing Louis beat Caecilius, everyone fell silent. It really is a genius. You can learn offensive magic, although it is well deserved. Will he become the successor of Ancient One Mage in the future? Listening to the discussion of a group of juniors and juniors, Caecilius just snorted coldly in his heart. The great Mr. Louis, how can you people understand it? The greatness of Mr. Louis is destined to play super tongue leak. Seeing that he had become the focus of everyone, Louis didn't bother too much, and returned to the library. He still has a lot of magic that he hasn't learned, and those powers are really interesting. Mr. Louis. Caecilius' voice sounded behind Louis. In the future, can I practice magic with you? Caecilius looked at Louis seriously and sincerely, and he was also worried about getting a rejection. Although it will not affect his belief, it will make him very disappointed. Louis turned his head, showed a smile, and said, definitely yes, I will trouble you for the training partner in the future. Although I don't know what Caecilius' plan is, but Louis will not refuse anyone. He really needs a qualified partner to train magic, so that he can kill Mordo under Camartage's rules. Only magic can counter magic. Only magic can kill magic. Ancient One acquiesced, so Louis can be unscrupulous if he does not go beyond the rules. Caecilius is very suitable as a partner, no matter what he looks like in the future, at least the current Caecilius doesn't look annoying. Louis plunged into the library, and all the magic books in Ancient One's private collection were read by Louis. There are many powerful magic spells recorded in it, as well as magic. The speed of Louis' progress made countless people feel ashamed. Wang watched Louis come in and out every day with a ghostly face. After training with Caecilius, I started to study hard. Bottleneck. Does not exist. Can't read. It's so simple, can't you understand? Build a magic circle. The logical thinking of studying economics still lacks this reasoning ability. In short, Louis recorded all these magics in his mind in the shortest time. I don't know anything else, anyway. After absorbing the ancient will, Louis's learning path is simply drawing inferences from one instance. The tyrannical power in his body was also completely controlled by Louis, and constitution also broke through again. Louis feels that he can have a constitution similar to Futty's without wearing armor now. Louis' hands formed a circle on the ground, on the other side of the circle was the wind and snow, and there was a figure in a yellow robe. Louis jumped in and landed beside Ancient One Mage. Space power is forbidden by Ancient One Mage here, but it is completely feasible to use it to construct space channels. Ancient One Mage remained motionless, as if he had lost his soul. But Louis knows very well that Ancient One Mage is now entangled with Dormammu in a different dimension. It seems that because of being irritated by Louis, Dormammu's riots have been frequent recently, and Ancient One Mage often goes to different dimensions. Swish! The space channel was opened, and Dormammu's breath projection was suppressed, and then blocked out by Yi's magic circle. No matter how Dormammu attacks, 0.1 with the cooperation of the will of the earth, Ancient One repelled Dormammu's snooping. Louis felt the will of the earth at that moment. As an Asgardian of earth, earth will naturally help the Ancient One. Mr. Louis, it seems that you have gained a lot during this time. Ancient One Mage felt the magic power on Louis, and said appreciatively. In just half a month, Louis achieved what other people could not do for thousands of years. I'm here this time to borrow something. Louis was also unambiguous, directly explaining the purpose of coming. What is it? Ancient One asked, stunned for a moment. Sling ring. Louis said his purpose. He didn't find a large-scale teleportation magic circle in the library, so he came to borrow the sling ring from Ancient One. This thing is like any door, you can go wherever you want. Chapter 107. There was no surprise in Ancient One, Louis came to Kamartaj obviously with his own purpose. But definitely not for learning magic. However, sling ring. Ancient One pondered for a moment, then said, Mr. Louis, many times it is not us who choose magic items, but they choose their masters. I have no way to decide whether the sling ring will stay or not, it depends on whether it is willing to follow you. After all, Ancient One took out the sling ring. This is a magic item that has been passed down for many years, and its source is no longer known. But as long as you have a sling ring, you can go anywhere. This limit has not been tested by anyone, but traveling through the solar system will not have any problems. This is also the purpose of Louis coming to Ancient One. Buzz buzz. The sling ring started to ring the moment it was taken out by Ancient One. It flew into Louis' hands almost in an instant. The atmosphere was suddenly awkward. Ancient One just said that magic props will choose their own masters. Sling ring 05 flew into Louis' arms. Well, it seems to like me very much. Louis said with a smile, and put the sling ring on his hand. The sling ring self-adjusts the file size and fits Louis' palm perfectly. Why don't you try again? Louis asked, seeing Ancient One's astonished expression. Ancient One shook his head, a little helpless, but felt like a minister of reason. Since it chose you, then it will be yours from now on. Ancient One didn't want to haggle over a sling ring with Louis. These are originally for the virtuous, and only those who have been recognized can have it. Then thank you, I have to go back first. The moment Louis came into contact with the sling ring, he knew how to use the sling ring. He drew a circle with both hands, and a magic portal appeared in front of Louis. Kamartaj was set up with a magic barrier by Ancient One Mage, and the space teleportation was suppressed here, but the sling ring was not affected at all here. On the other side of the magic portal is the fiery magma, and at the same time there is a stunned Langton. Ancient One recognized Langdon, and Langdon recognized Ancient One on the other end. No, how is this possible? You opened the magic portal without touching the magic warning. Langton panicked. Langton, let me go, I'm going to jump over here. Louis shouted at the other end, and then rushed into the magic portal like a child finding a toy. Call out. The portal disappeared instantly. Louis also stepped on Langton's face, who had no time to dodge. Sorry, I just got a new toy and I'm a little excited. Louis stretched out his hand and pulled Langton up. Langton's size 47 face completely left the shoe prints of Louis' size 42. But Langton just wiped his face casually, then looked at Louis with a confused face, and then looked at the location where the magic portal appeared before. Mr. Louis, you made this up. Langton was still a little unbelievable. You must know that Louis never knew magic before that, and Langton could swear by his 18 generations of ancestors. But look, what does he see now? The magical energy on Louis is not inferior to some old monsters that have been soaked in it for many years. This simply made countless people feel ashamed. Well, the magic I just learned from Kamartaj. Louis laughed. Kamartaj. Langdon froze for a moment, hadn't heard of it. It is the place of pilgrimage established by the Supreme Mage. Ancient One. Louis explained. Earth's Asgardian Supreme Mage, is this generation called Ancient One? Langton nodded. Asgardians of Earth, he still knows. The Supreme Mage of all dynasties is a strong and invincible existence, with the power to control a world, and is at the same level as the Dwarf King. However, why can Mr. Louis suddenly appear without touching the magic guard I left behind? Langton expressed his incomprehension. If this is the case, then what is the use of his magic alert setting? I use this, the magic tool in Legendary, Sling Ring. Louis showed the treasure he just got. Like someone who has been hungry for 3 days and saw a table full of Hyuxia people, Langton stared straight at Xiaowei in Louis's hand. This is the Sling Ring, a magic tool made by the Supreme Mage in Legendary, which claims to be able to go anywhere. Langton murmured. If it's this, then I really have nothing to do. The Supreme Mage's strength must have far surpassed Langton's own, and Langton was convinced that he lost. However, Mr. Louis actually got the Sling Ring, then. Langton suddenly thought of the purpose of the Sling Ring in Louis' hands. That's right, with the Sling Ring, I can go anywhere. There is no problem in smelting unknown vaults through Mars. The travel fee is also a little impatient. The purpose of his trip to Kamartaj is for the Sling Ring. If the Sling Ring fails, he will find a space magic circle for long-distance transmission. As for learning magic, it is completely incidental. Even Lewis himself didn't expect it to be so smooth. Langton was more excited than Lewis. He had been coveting that unknown metal for a long time, and now he finally had the chance to do it. After packing up the forging tools, Lewis immediately opened the space door to Mars through the sling ring. That desolate scene, the desolate land boundary. Here is Mars, and Lewis was sure that his positioning was correct. When Langton took a step, he felt that the whole body of 737 was light and his beard was floating. The gravity here is much lower than on Earth. The air is thin, but it's good enough for us. Lewis also came here, experienced the surrounding situation, and then adapted to the current environment. The constitution of two people can survive for a long time even without air. On Mars, as long as there is a slight air content, there is no problem for two people to survive. The only thing that needs to be careful is the various rays in the universe. The density of the atmosphere of Mars is less than 1% of that of the Earth, so it is easy to penetrate the atmosphere and directly affect the surface of Mars. Mr. Lewis, when you get here, leave it to me. I can melt that unknown metal in just 2 or 3 days. Langton was very confident. However, the forging cycle of this suit of armor may be very long, at least in units of years. It needs to constantly absorb the power of Mars. That suit of armor shouldn't be very useful for you, are you, right? Lewis asked suddenly. Langton froze for a moment, and immediately said, yes, according to your description of the armor's compatibility, URU is not very necessary, and unknown metals are more suitable. Give me all the URU, I need to build a set of Magic Series armor myself. Lewis didn't want to be idle either. Chapter 108. However, this should not be enough, the ULU we have is not enough to make a set of armor. Langton felt that Louis was overthinking it. The Stormhammer and Mjolnir's Wooloo metal were not enough to make a set of armor. Enough is enough, the unknown metal is used as the main body, URU is covered as a good magic metal, but the only thing missing is the magic crystal. I need magic crystals for armor cores. Lewis had already considered the wizard's manufacturing materials clearly. Magic crystal, I have it here, a magic crystal cluster gathered by the rich fire element in the Earth's magma. Ban Dun took out the magic water found in his magma. It contains a strong fire element, which is simply the initial form that perfectly echoes the wizard. Lewis didn't expect everything to go so smoothly. Armed with URU metal and the magic crystal, Louis returned to Kamartaj via the sling ring. Asgard's Ulu metal, what do you want to use these for? Ancient One immediately discovered what Lewis brought back. Build a suit of armor. Lewis didn't intend to hide it. You have already learned magic, these foreign objects can be used less, and magic is the most fundamental power. Ancient One spoke earnestly. I really don't want to see Lewis ignoring the power of magic because of building armor. From Ancient One's point of view, Lewis can completely take over the position of his supreme mage to protect the Earth. But Lewis, it seems that he has no such plan. Ancient One Mage, for me, armor is the foundation of my strength, and magic exists only for armor. How could Lewis give up armor? Armor is more powerful than magic. Learning magic by yourself is just to build wizard armor. Deviant. Ancient One Mage said indifferently, feeling that Lewis was wasting his magic ability. This is my choice. Lewis raised his head, his eyes showed a trace of indifference, but in an instant it turned into a smile like the warm sunshine of March. It was as if the indifferent eyes before were an illusion. I will consider your suggestion, but I still want to build the armor first. Facing Lewis like this, Ancient One nodded helplessly. You go to the king, he knows where the books on alchemy using the magic circle are. Ancient One said helplessly. Lewis is definitely not the kind of person who will change his mind just because of a word of his own. Lewis opened the space door and came to Kamartaj's library. Wang was flipping through the books here, and when he saw Lewis walking in, he also nodded. Now, almost all of Kamartaj feel that Louis is the next supreme mage. Because Ancient One's attitude towards Lewis is too different. When Wang saw the sling ring on Lewis's hand, he confirmed Lewis' identity as the future supreme mage. King, I need some magic circles for alchemy. Follow me. Wang put down the books in his hands and took Lewis to a remote corner. Here are all books about forging metal and smelting magic props through magic circles. But very few people come. The sling ring in your hand is said to be the masterpiece of a certain Rensheik. It's just that few people will choose the path of magic metallurgy now. Wang introduced the situation here to Lewis. As a librarian, Wang has a general understanding of all the books here. Thank you, I will stay here for a long time, don't bother me. Don't worry, there are very few people here. After Wang finished speaking, he set up a soundproof magic near here to ensure that Louis could think quietly. Louis smiled and nodded in the direction Wang left, and turned his gaze to these books on magic and metallurgy. There are not many books, and it seems that there are indeed very few people who focus on this aspect. Louis opened one book after another, only to find that there is a new world hidden inside. There are not only books on magic metallurgy, but also some books on the forging of magic tools by the sages. Although there are not many books, the introductions are very detailed. Even, Louis actually saw the method of using the magic circle to forge ulu here. This is useful, keep it for now. Louis glanced roughly. This method of smelting ulu metal is very suitable for me. After all, I can't forge metal in the magma of the Earth's core for a long time like Langton. This method of using magic to smelt and use spiritual power to forge is very suitable for Louis. Louis watched mesmerized. Those ancient wills in his mind are also helping Louis understand the use of these magic circles. In the library, there were fluctuations of magic from time to time. This is Louis trying to construct a magic circle, but he didn't build it, it just painted the circle pattern in the void. Wang only occasionally checked on Louis' progress. There were not many books, and Louis read them very quickly. Late at night. A disciple of Kamartaj sent today's supper to the confinement to Jendu. Click. A hand stretched out from the small door of the confinement room and grabbed the disciple's hand. Ah! The disciple was taken aback. Senior brother Modu, what's the matter with you? That Louis, what have you been doing lately? Are you still practicing magic? Modu's voice became hoarse, like the sound of rusty gears rubbing against each other. Just listening to it makes people shudder. I haven't seen Mr. Louis practicing magic in the past few days. It seems that he has been staying in the library and doesn't know what he is doing. Where's Caecilius? Hasn't he been practicing magic with Louis? Call him over. Senior brother Modu, you now. Stop talking nonsense, call me Caecilius, since you regard me as a senior brother, then do as the senior brother says. Yes, but, senior brother, can you let go of, Qian Zhao? Modu let go of his hand, and the disciple fled immediately. A black shadow emerged from this disciple's hand, and slowly entered his body. The disciple who was running at first slowed down, his eyes became confused, he looked around and looked at his hands. The hoarse voice sounded again, with a little more excitement, I finally waited until Ancient One went to a different dimension, this body is really not used to it. Modu used black magic to put his consciousness on this disciple. He walked towards the residence of Caecilius, one of the few subjects who had been honored by the ancients. Caecilius' residence was not far from Mordo's residence. Boom boom boom. Mordo knocked on Caecilius' door. Who is it? Caecilius was still about to start meditating when he heard someone sitting outside the door. In the big night, who will come to find me? Chapter 109. Da-da-da. The footsteps became especially loud at night. Kamartaj fell into silence, and almost all the disciples entered a state of meditation. In the library, magic lights are shining. It is a flame that burns without heat, only by magical power. Shadows fell over the door of the Kamartaj library. Wang felt the breath and looked up. Caecilius, what are you doing in the library this late? I have some doubts, and I want to get answers in the books in the library, and when I find the answers, I leave go in. Thanks. Caecilius walked into the library, looked around and walked in one direction. Louis is experimenting with the newly learned magic engraving, which is a method of engraving magical power on items. Louis heard someone approaching and subconsciously looked back. Caecilius, why are you here? Louis had the most frequent contact with Caecilius during this period. At least in terms of communication and exchange, Caecilius gave Louis a lot of help. Mr. Louis, I want to compete with you in magic. Caecilius said calmly. I haven't learned any new magic during this time. Louis shook his head. During this time, he was 830 in books. Find a way to build a wizard in it. Naturally, there is no time to compete with Caecilius. I learned a new magic, so I want to find someone to try it. Caecilius continued. Louis stared into Caecilius' eyes for a moment, then smiled. Since you have said so, then, as you wish. Louis stood up and tidied up the books beside him. The two walked out of the library. Wang glanced at Louis and Caecilius. This scene has happened many times. In the competition between the two, every time Lewis wins by a small margin. Came to the square. There is no one here now, just right for a magic duel between two people. Base. The magic longsword fell into Lewis' hands in an instant, burning fierce flames, and the random dancing brought a scorching breath. The flaming longsword in the book of black magic. Caecilius murmured. A defense formation shining white light was held in Caecilius' hands with a heavy breath. The clash of sword and shield. Sparks fly, but this time Louis feels, the pressure too. Can't crush Caecilius like before. This magic circle seems to have the function of absorbing damage, making every slash of Lewis feel like being stuck in mud. Clang! There was a crisp slashing sound, and Lewis' body fell lightly to the ground. There is no need to continue, Caecilius, your magic has improved a lot. Lewis said lightly. The tone was neither humble nor overbearing, without the slightest emotion, making it hard for people to see what he was thinking now. Don't try again. Caecilius persisted. No, I've been researching magic circles recently, and I'm quite interested in that. Lewis laughed. Well then, I wish you success in your research. Caecilius showed a not-so-good-looking smile, a little stiff. Lewis opened the door of space with the sling ring casually, and got in. Standing on the square, Caecilius saw the sling ring in Lewis's hand, with a hint of greed and hatred in his eyes. Ancient One, you actually gave the sling ring to this outsider, it seems that you really want to give him the position of Supreme Mage. That's obviously my place. The hoarse voice replaced Caecilius' original voice. There was a trace of madness on Caecilius' face, but amidst the madness, a different kind of breath also appeared on Caecilius' body. Modu, you dare to attack us, the teacher will not let you go. Caecilius' voice sounded again, but it was a little weak. His body was occupied by Mordo using black magic, and now his soul was squeezed into a small space. But Caecilius couldn't kill him either, it was his body after all. Teacher? As long as I kill Lewis, the position of Supreme Mage is still mine, and I can also protect the Earth. Will Ancient One give up the future Supreme Mage for a dead man? Modo laughed. You'll never beat Mr. Louis, never, Caecilius snarled. Don't worry about it, you can sleep well before I kill Lewis. Modo sneered. A black shadow emerged from Caecilius' body, and Caecilius fell into the snowstorm in the square. When he was discovered the next day, Caecilius had already been frozen to death. Although the magic power was still protecting his body, it was difficult for him to wake up for a while. Inside the library, Lewis collected some books he needed, but saw Wang walking towards him quickly. Lewis, did you kill Caecilius yesterday and throw him in the square? Do you know that he nearly froze to death and is still in a coma? Lewis closed the book and said with a smile, do you think if I did it, it would be so obvious? Waiting for you to come to me. But... Wang was a little confused for a while. No, but, I didn't do it, it looks like Camartage has turned out a betrayer. Lewis, you can't talk nonsense. Okay, I'll just mention it, don't be so nervous. You really didn't do it. Wang stared at Louis's dignity, wanting to see if he was lying. No. Louis' answer was very cold, but his eyes did not avoid it in the slightest. He knew who it was, but he didn't want to say it. Modu thought he was doing it perfectly, but the moment he saw Caecilius, Louis knew that his soul had changed. However, Louis did not intend to speak out. If he said it, how could he use it to defeat magic openly? Seeing Louis's resolute response, Wang also nodded. As Louis said, he has no need or reason to do such a thing. No grudges, so why be so decisive? Louis put the other books in their place and the useful ones in his own space. Slingring built a space door, Louis walked in, and Mars was on the other end. Wang felt the door of space opened by the sling ring and rushed over immediately, but the door of space had disappeared. Louis, those books are easy to break. Wang yelled. But Louis on the other end didn't seem to hear a word. Wang can only hope that Louis can bring the books back safely. As a librarian, he regards these books as treasures. Louis felt Langton's position on Mars, and once again used Xiawei to open the door of space. Chapter 110. Louis' figure fell into the space created by Langton. The hot breath was blocked outside. In front of Langton was a pool of silver metallic liquid, and one could even feel a mysterious aura on it. This is the metal left over from the destroyer's body, which was dissolved into these liquids under the power of Mars' core. This breath is a bit familiar. Louis' voice sounded behind Langton. It's the will of the earth. Langton said in a deep voice. The voice was a little weak, and it was obvious that Langton had expended a lot of energy in smelting this metal. It turned out to be the will of the earth. Can it be intercepted? Louis asked. No, Mars is too close to the earth, and the will of the earth will leave soon. Langton shook his head. The destroyer armor was originally made by Asgard. Odin also has the power infused by Zeus. Although it is Odin's armor, it is also the earth's protective armor, which naturally carries the will of the earth. But he was used by Odin to exorcise his son. Langton was stunned for a moment, and said with a wry smile, it's all about using power for personal gain. Odin is a strong man, but he is not a good person. Louis smiled, he already knew that Odin was not a good thing. You take what you need first, and I'll take the part according to the situation. Louis said. Langton nodded, waved his hand and took away more than half of the unknown metal. Louis took another small part and sealed it in his own space. After taking out Kamartaj's book, Louis still needs to ask Langton about the creation of the magic circle. Dwarf has the best forging technology, which naturally includes magic circle forging. These are forged by the magic circle, and there is actually a tempered magic circle, good things, good things. Langton looked at each book, a little confused. Louis had a good eye, and all he brought was the best part of it. Mr. Louis, no matter what kind of armor you plan to build, these are enough. Langton can say without exaggeration that the forging classics here are no less than those in Wordheim. After all, Wordheim still started with the primitive forging method. This book? Langton asked in confusion. I was holding a stitch-free version in my hand, which was easy to mess up. It seems that the weight is a bit wrong. Langton said, and then weighed it in his hand a few times. There is definitely a problem. The book is heavier than the paper. Langton flipped through the pages, trying to find out the problems. Louis also had this feeling before, but he didn't pay much attention to it. After all, he was not as sensitive to weight as Langton. Langton soon found a special piece of paper, which looked ordinary, but was almost twice as heavy as other papers. The above depicts a very common magic alchemy array. The ancient magician mage wants to change the arrangement of matter and turn stones into golden magic circles. Louis has seen this magic circle, but at most it can only control the combination of molecules, and there is no way to control atoms. Midas touch is still a joke. Langton slowly placed the paper outside the space, and in the center, the energy was huge. Just the moment of going out, the temperature inside Mars burned this page of paper, exposing the metal sheet sandwiched inside. This is... Langton's eyes widened immediately. Ulu! Louis also exclaimed. Neither of them thought that the inside of this piece of paper was actually a metal page made by URU. And on the Ulu metal page, a strange magic circle appeared in it, like the eyes of a devil attracting everyone's attention. Just by looking at it, Langton felt that his soul was about to be sucked clean. The Ulu metal page fell lightly into Louis' hands. Louis immediately understood the function of this magic circle. This is a magic circle that can condense the life of creatures into special coins, which can be used to replenish strength and maintain life. Louis' face was pale. This magic circle was very similar to the one in his mind. However, this should not appear here. Mr. Louis, are you okay? Langton asked. When Louis came into contact with this Ulu metal page just now, he fell into a special state, as if he had lost his soul. I'm fine, I just thought of something. Louis shook his head, indicating that he was fine. I'll put this thing here first, and I'll go back first. Louis was in a daze. Explained some things to Langton, and then returned to Earth through the sling ring. How so? It shouldn't be here. If it appears, then what is the point of my traveling here? Louis frowned tightly. The appearance of this magic circle was really outrageous. He came to the library, he was looking for the king. Mr. Louis. Seeing Louis rushing towards him, Wang subconsciously took a step back. Wang, when did this book appear in the library? Louis asked, placing the book with the Ulu metal pages in front of Wang. This book. Wang looked at the book, also a little puzzled. 0 in my memory, I don't seem to remember that there is a book. Mr. Louis, where did you find it? Wang got to ask. I knew it would be like this. Louis frowned, ignoring Wang. Walking into the library step by step, the aura on his body became profound and terrifying. Mr. Louis, you cannot enter the library in such a state. Wang Li stopped Louis immediately. Louis looked like he wanted to destroy. Wang stopped in front of Louis. I'm fine, I just want a result. Louis said coldly. Mr. Louis, if you really want to know, you can ask Ancient One Mage, she has existed longer than me. Persuaded. There was a hint of thought in Louis's eyes, he nodded, and said, you are right, Ancient One may know the origin of this book. After all, Louis disappeared in front of the king. This is the speed at which the door of space opens? It's too fast. Wang Du didn't react. Louis's control over space is simply invincible, and he can completely cause teleportation effects, without any preparations yet. Louis appeared on the top of the Himalayas, and because he was still in a different dimension, he was in a stalemate with Dormammu. It happens every once in a while. As the Asgardian of the earth, the main work of Ancient One Mage is like this. Louis waited for a long time for the fight but did not wait for the appearance of the Ancient One, and the sling ring opened the door of the space link to the alien space. The breath of Ancient One and Dormammu is among them. Chapter 111. Boom. The breath of magic surged. Woohoo! White magic and black magic are hedging. Huge spiritual power filled the entire alien space. Dormammu had the upper hand, but Ancient One had its back to earth. Neither side can do anything to the other, they are just in a stalemate, and what Ancient One has to do is to prevent Dormammu from connecting the alien space and the earth plane together. In addition, the breath of Dormammu infects the earth and develops believers on the earth. These can only be left to the disciples of Kamartaj to solve. Louis' breath suddenly appeared in the alien space, which shocked both Ancient One and Dormammu. Ancient One thought that Dormammu still had a second hand, and Dormammu thought that the tongue came to the end of his hair. Both sides stopped fighting at the same time, but the previous magical hedging continued. 920 is exploding throughout the alien space. Boom. Louis' aura is particularly weak here, even though he cut Dormammu with his previous sword. But that power cannot be controlled by Louis, even now it is a bit difficult for Louis to slash that sword again. Louis, go back quickly, why are you here? Ancient One was surprised when he saw that it was Louis. It never occurred to her that Louis would suddenly barge in. In Ancient One's view, Louis is not the kind of person who doesn't know what to do. The alien space is so dangerous, Louis couldn't think about it, but he just entered here. But Louis' breath really appeared here. Ha 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 ha. Dormammu was laughing, and he recognized Louis as the human who had PD'd him off. Boy, I finally caught you. This time, you will not be so lucky. Both you and Ancient One will die. No one can save you. Today is the day I invade the earth, and everyone will be my slave. Dormammu's indescribable body is surging and floating, like an illusion, but also like an entity. It's too ugly. Louis complained. Dormammu looks more like a ravaged slime, painted in the color of mirror powder. Damn boy! Dormammu was furious, and then grabbed a ball of energy and threw it at Louis. Ancient One's magic circle spread in all directions, and at this moment, they all exerted their strength to block this attack. Louis, go quickly, you don't know Dormammu's opponent yet. Ancient One said to Louis, wary of Dormammu's attack. Don't you have the Eye of Agamotto? Use it to deal with it. Louis thought, in the original movie, it was Doctor Strange who used the Eye of Agamotto to trap Dormammu. In the end, Doma gave up his plan to attack the Earth. I'm not the owner of Eye of Agamotto, I just own it temporarily. Ancient One explained, although it was strange why Louis knew he had Eye of Agamotto. Artifacts have the right to independently choose their masters. Apparently, Ancient One wasn't picked by Eye of Agamotto. Give me a try. Louis said in a deep voice. Being able to connect with Tesseract and Space Gem seems to prove that it is not easy for me. Perhaps, also try Eye of Agamotto and Time Gem. Ancient One took out the Eye of Agamotto from his arms without even thinking about it. Dormammu felt a threat and roared because of the sound. The huge magic output wanted to directly smash the defense of Ancient One. Puff! Ancient One spat out a mouthful of blood. Under Dormammu's attack, part of his body was affected and destroyed, but it was rebuilt by the magic circle in an instant. Eye of Agamotto floated in the space, circled around Louis a few times, and then the choice fell into Louis' hands. Ancient One was taken aback for a moment, not expecting that Louis could really make Eye of Agamotto recognize him. Lucky boy, but it doesn't work, even the Eye of Agamotto can't deal with me, I am the root of black magic, a mere artifact of white magic, don't try to fight against me. Dormammu sneered, not taking Louis seriously. But Louis didn't panic at all, and with a thought, Eye of Agamotto disappeared in his hand. In Louis' personal space, the Eye of Agamotto watched everything around curiously. Here, a light blue cube was suspended in the air. As artifacts carrying two infinite gems, this time they meet, they feel the breath of each other. The space gem and time gem emerge from Eye of Agamotto and Tesseract respectively. Dormammu is attacking Ancient One frantically, trying to kill Ancient One at all costs. But backed by the Earth, Ancient One's white magic circle is almost connected to the Earth. Although Dormammu's attack is fierce, it is difficult to kill the Ancient One. Louis was still standing there, but the aura on his body became even more mysterious. For Ancient One, this is hope. But for Dormammu, Louis' breath is a great threat. Impossible, how can a small human being make me feel threatened? Dormammu didn't believe that Louis could threaten him. Ancient One looked calm, facing Dormammu's attack. Ancient One was a bit powerless. Dormammu's style of play is completely killing 1000 enemies and destroying 800, but all the problems stem from Louis, who is in a special state. Ancient One doesn't know what Louis went through, but it's clear that what Louis is doing now scares Dormammu, and that's enough. All Ancient One has to do is stop Dormammu from touching a hair on Louis. Ancient One, you are looking for death, don't think that I really can't kill you. Dormammu was angry and threatened. If you can kill me, then come on, you can't get close to me before I die. Gu looked calm, as if life and death had nothing to do with her. The light yellow robe is automatic without wind, and the power of magic is growing almost exponentially. Ancient One didn't hold back anymore, and went all out, desperately. You lunatic, you don't know what you are protecting. I saw great silence in him. 5.5 I only know that if I die, he will be the next supreme mage. The two people stated their thoughts and opinions, which were completely different, but Dormammu was obviously scared. The breath on Louis' body began to calm down from floating, and finally, Louis opened his eyes. Two breaths of space and time circulated on Louis' body, one blue and one green. Lightly drew a big circle towards Dormammu with both hands. The space is shrinking, trapping Dormammu in it. Dormammu erupted with his own strength, shaking this space to the point of collapse, but in the next second, the breath of time descended. The space was restored to its original state again. This is an infinitely repeating space. As long as Dormammu has no way to break this space, the power of time will constantly restore the space. Chapter 112. Let's go. Louis looked at the trapped Dormammu, his voice cold and unforgiving. Ancient One looked at Louis, nodded, and exhausted all his strength to construct the sealing magic in the alien space. Then stepped into the door of space opened by the sling ring. Ancient One walked into the gate of space, and the gate of space disappeared without a trace in an instant. Dormammu, who stayed in the back and forth loop, could only watch as Ancient One and Louis left. Antiquity call out. Turn back time. Dormammu couldn't even speak a complete sentence, so he was flown back in time. In the entire alien space, only Dormammu was left roaring and cursing. Ancient Louis watched Ancient One stepping out of the space gate, and immediately withdrew the sling ring to regain its power. The whole person was separated from that mysterious aura, and his body became extremely weak. Louis' constitution wants to carry the power of the two gems of space and time, but it is still too reluctant. Now it feels like being rolled back and forth by a steamroller, and every skin and muscle in the body is not like my own. Louis, are you all right? Gu immediately asked with concern when he came out. Louis' performance in 05 has proved that he can protect the Earth, especially Louis has also been recognized by Eye of Agamotto and Sling Ring. As long as Louis is willing, Ancient One can now give up the position of Supreme Mage to Louis. I'm a little sleepy, I'll sleep first. Louis yawned. After saying this, Louis fell into a deep sleep. Using the space gem and the time gem at the same time is really tiring. Even if it is a level godfather like Thanos, if he wants to use the 6 infinite gems, he needs to pass the infinity gauntlet. Louis' constitution used 2 infinite gems to enter the exhaustion period. The space gem and time gem are back in their containers. Louis is recognized by them, so they are not willing to hurt Louis. The Tesseract and Eye of Agamotto hovered quietly, both using their power to relieve Louis' tired body. One is a white magic artifact, and the other is the purest energy source. The massage effect is simply the best spa in the universe. In the distant universe, a dark purple man with a vertical chin looked at the trembling scepter in front of him. Its subject is the Mind Gem from Infinite Gems. Mind Gem bloomed a yellow light, but quickly returned to calm. Space Gem, Time Gem, the breath is fleeting. Thanos pondered, looking at the distant Earth. The direction given by Mind Gem is there, Midgard, Earth, one of the 5 great kingdoms of God. That old thing Odin is still alive, he, what a tough opponent. Thanos' voice was cold and ruthless. As a qualified politician, military strategist, and careerist, he is very clear that his current strength cannot compete with Odin. His current strength is not enough to fight against Odin. Then bear it first, Odin, who has lived for 300,000 years, should reach the end of the Aesir Protoss. He can still afford to wait for this little time. Thanos seemed to have suddenly remembered something, turned on the communicator in the spaceship, and asked, "Is the boy from the Frost Titan family who was rescued a few days ago still alive?" "Alive, already awake. Bring him to me." Thanos feels the blood of the Frost Titan in Loki, but at the same time has the breath of the Aesir Protoss. "Odin, is this your plan?" Thanos can more or less guess what Odin wants to do, although he doesn't know why Loki will wander into the universe. However, this identity of Loki can be used to help. Thanos sat on his throne, tapping his fingers on the armrest once and for all. Pat! The sound of icy water dripping woke Louis from his sleep. The rare sun outside melted some of the snow and ice. Louis felt his body strengthened again, thanks to Eye of Agamotto and Tesseract. As for the 2 little bastards, Time Gem and Space Gem, they are now hiding in their own loads and dare not show up. Louis' body was caused by them, almost destroyed by these 2 little bastards. Ancient One sensed it the moment Louis woke up. The days when they didn't have to deal with Dormammu gave Ancient One more free time. Your body recovers quickly, besides the Eye of Agamotto, there is another artifact in your body. Ancient One said with a smile. Louis nodded without denying it. You have the Eye of Agamotto, and the sling rings approval. Dormammu is also trapped by you. I think you are more suitable for the position of Supreme Mage than me. If you can. What Ancient One thought was to give Louis the position of Supreme Mage. In this way, she can relax, teach more disciples, and wipe out all Dormammu's followers. But before he could finish speaking, he was interrupted by Louis. I refuse. Louis shook his head. 5. The atmosphere was awkward for a moment, and after a while, Ancient One recovered from his astonishment and asked, "Why? I don't want to bind myself to the earth because of this position. My future is the sea of stars, and the earth is too small for me." Louis explained. Also, Ancient One Mage, you are more suitable than me, and you have always done a good job. I'm different. I have to report my flaw 667. I like to cause trouble. I hate mediocrity. I can't teach others well. Besides, magic is just a means, my most fundamental historical restoration box. Louis eloquently said everything he wanted to say. In exchange, it was incomprehensible to Ancient One. I can't understand your choice, but I respect your choice. If you make up your mind, you can tell me at any time. I can't think of anyone else who can take this position except you. Ancient One said sincerely. At this time, the Ancient One is more like an extraordinary wise man. Even if you can't understand it, you choose to respect it. Thank you, you are a wise man. Louis said with a smile. That's why he honors the Ancient One Mage, a wise being who has protected the earth for countless hours, from the moment she became mage. How long have I been asleep? It's been a week. That is to say, Yuan will officially come out in 1 week. Louis squinted his eyes. He has been waiting for Mota for a week. Louis. Ancient One Mage shouted suddenly, you are the one who will become Supreme Mage in the future, you should have a tolerant attitude. Sorry, I don't plan to become Supreme Mage in the future, and. Tolerance is what God has to do, and what I have to do is to send him to see God. Chapter 113. Even Ancient One didn't think of Louis' firm belief. Looking at Louis, who had no possibility of accommodation, Ancient One finally shook his head. It is simply impossible to expect to influence Louis with words. In terms of purely magical strength, you are no match for Motu. Ancient One said. If you don't try, who will know? Louis showed a long-lost confident smile. But no but. Ancient One looked at the stubborn Louis, really angry and funny. Finally, after thinking and thinking, Ancient One still took out the things he had prepared. Although you are not ready to become the Supreme Mage yet, this thing can still be given to you. Ancient One brought a red cloak in front of Louis. If you only look at the appearance, this is a very common cape. But Louis knew that this was an artifact-levitation cloak. Long before the magic temple in the universe, the levitation cloak had already appeared, and no one knew its origin. The moment Louis' hands touched the levitation cloak seemed to come alive, and it was placed lightly on Louis' shoulders. It seems that you are indeed the master he has been waiting for many years. Ancient One seemed to be used to Louis' mystery. Even if the levitating cloak recognized Louis, she didn't feel strange. It was as if the levitation cloak should have belonged to Louis. Ancient One also heaved a sigh of relief seeing Louis accept the levitation cloak. In this way, there is no need to worry about Louis being killed by Modu in the duel. Ancient One still doesn't believe that without the help of the previous armor, Louis can defeat Mordo. Give me a quiet place, I want to make magic instruments. The peaks of the Himalayas will be handed over to you, and no one will disturb you there. Louis nodded, the sling ring opened the door of space, stepped out, and appeared on the top of the Himalayas. Ancient One looked at the disappearing space gate and sighed helplessly. This battle is unavoidable, but no matter who it is, Ancient One doesn't want to see anyone injured or killed. One is the future Supreme Mage, and the other is his own disciple. The Ancient One knew about Louis' idea of building a magic tool. Use magic to defeat magic, and magic tools are naturally within the scope of use. But the Eye of Agamotto, the sling ring, and the levitation cloak are all just for protecting Louis. Louis wants to defeat Mordo, is this weak really enough? Standing on the top of the Himalayas, Louis immediately took out Tesseract and Eye of Agamotto. Two little bastards, it's time for you to work. Louis said viciously. He knew that the time gem and the space gem could definitely hear him. Blue and green flickered slightly, and the two gems floated out and landed in front of Louis. Feeling Louis' thoughts, the space gem isolated a space on the top of the mountain, and the time gem changed the flow rate of this space. Ancient One's idea is not wrong, it is impossible to create a powerful magic weapon in a week. But what about a month, a year? Louis didn't know how long it would take him to build the wizard, but a year or so was definitely about the same. Using magic arrays to build armor is not as simple and crude as technological armor. More magic armor still needs to describe magic arrays. You, unknown metal, red magic crystal, these are the materials that Louis is going to use. As for the various magic circles, they all come from the memories in Louis' mind. A smelted magic circle was engraved on the ground, and Ulu started his first forging in this magic circle. No flames appeared, but the temperature generated by the magic power made Ulu start to change its shape. Louis started his first magic forging armor in his life. This is much more difficult than an armor built with data modules and then fully mechanically forged. Every inch of detail is considered by Louis, and these details will affect the combat effectiveness of the final armor. Louis did not dare to neglect at all, and was cautious. Camartage. There was no aura coming from the peak of the Himalayas. Ancient One glanced suspiciously. In the end, there was no choice to check it out. If he hadn't revealed the mystery of Louis himself, Gu Shi would still be as if he hadn't seen it. He stood beside Kisilius' bed, with a healing magic circle in his hand, reaching towards Kisilius' forehead. The dark power is ready to fight back desperately in front of this huge white magic power. As long as Ancient One's magic circle continues to penetrate, Kisilius' brain will be instantly destroyed. It is precisely because of this that Wang and the others dare not cure Kisilius. Is this the breath of Dormammu? Ancient One sighed. Finally, someone in Camartage was bewitched by Dormammu's power. Teacher, should we thoroughly investigate Camartage? The believers of Dormammu may not have left. Wang said. No need, I already guessed who it is. Let's see, what kind of trouble he can make. Yes. Looking at the sleeping Kisilius, Ancient One covered up his aura without a trace. Camartage's night came again. Kisilius, who was supposed to be asleep, suddenly opened his eyes. Gala, Gala. After moving his body that had been sleeping for a long time, Modu's voice sounded, and said, the breath of Ancient One has finally disappeared. Dormammu is really a waste. He has the entire alien space as his whole card, and he can still be entangled with Ancient One like this. When I become the Supreme Mage, Dormammu will also die, and the alien space will also be mine. Modu's expression became extraordinarily crazy, and his ambition grew wantonly during this time. When he came into contact with the real darkness, Modu's ambition was also fueled by the darkness, and he began to go crazy. Using black magic, Zhao Hezeo, to block the guarding disciple's 5 senses, Modu walked out swaggeringly, looking for the trace of Louis. Following Louis' aura, Modu accidentally discovered that the place where Louis' aura finally disappeared was on the top of the Himalayas. Would you like to take a look? Modu felt a little palpitated. Himalaya has Ancient One sitting in it, although Ancient One is not there now. Modu looked at the place on the top of the Himalayas. Originally, there was only Ancient One that could freely enter and exit, but now there is one more Louis. Ancient One, you really want to train Louis to be the supreme mage? Modu held the grudge even more, and with a heart attack, he restrained all his aura and came to the top of the Himalayas. But it was empty, no Ancient One, no Louis. Is there no one? Ancient One, after a week, I will completely shatter your hopes. Modu laughs at the extremely evil song. But he didn't expect that all his performances would fall into the eyes of Ancient One. Chapter 114. Modu eliminated his breath, and then left the mountain. He can almost conclude that Louis was brought into a different dimension by Ancient One. It seems that Ancient One wanted Louis to deal with Dormammu before taking over the position of Supreme Mage. This is preparing for the future. Modu left, and Ancient One also emerged. Louis. Ancient One knew that Louis could hear himself speaking, and also heard Modu's voice before. I know, I will take good care of him, life is definitely worse than death. Louis said frightened. He had held back before, and wanted to immediately have the urge to kill Modu. Hearing Louis' answer, Ancient One could feel the strong killing intent. Modu will die without a doubt. A week passed quickly. Modu came out of the confinement room. This was his own body. After being in the confinement room for a month, his face became extremely pale. But the magic power on his body was several times stronger. Creak. The door of the library was pushed open, and Wang saw Modu who had been released. Where's Louis? Modu asked without hiding his purpose. Modu, Mr. Louis is not here. Wang replied. Where's Ancient One? Modu asked again, he still didn't feel the breath of Ancient One. Modu, you should 607 call Ancient One Mage a teacher. Wang frowned. Modu came out this time, and gave Wang a completely different feeling. In the past, Modu looked like a good gentleman, but now Modu's breath has become evil, and his tone has become arrogant. Will it really drive Modu crazy in a month? Teacher. Modu smiled, and yelled these 2 words playfully. So, Wang, teacher. Where is she now? Ancient One Mage left Camartage yesterday and will not be returning anytime soon. Last night, Ancient One told Wang that he was going on a long journey, and he didn't have any intention of hiding his practice. Tisk tisk tisk. It seems that I really chose a good time to come out. Modu smiled, and the power of magic turned into a long rope to bind the king's body. What are you doing? Wang shouted loudly. But what he got in exchange was Modu's sneer. Hush, don't talk, I want you to watch a good show. Modu put his finger on his lips and made a motion of silence. Those librarians who heard the voice of the king were also bound by Modu's magic. Good show, let's start. Modu looked at Camartage, stepped out, and the entire Camartage was surrounded by huge amounts of magic circle. Every brick, every house becomes distorted, like a molecular state that can be changed at will. All the disciples of Camartage were alarmed, but just as they were about to cast magic to resist, they were bound by magic chains. There is no escape for anyone. Modu, you are using black magic to harm human beings. You are still being corroded by the power of darkness. Wang never thought that Modu would be controlled by the power of darkness. No, I didn't, I was controlling the black magic. Modu smiled softly. No power can control me, not even Dormammu, I am invincible, the only one who is destined to become the Supreme Mage. Louis, come out and let me see what kind of strength the Supreme Mage successor handpicked by Ancient One has. Modu's voice was transmitted in all directions with the help of the magic circle. He knew that Louis must hear. The peaks of the Himalayas. In the velocity space, Modu's voice was filled countless times. Every word is heard hours apart. Louis was too lazy to talk to Modu, he overestimated his proficiency. Forging the magic circle is a very troublesome thing, even with the addition of ancient will, Louis has spent a lot of effort. Louis' hands carefully carved a magic circle on the magic gem on Wizard's chest. This is the core of the wizard, and it's crucial. When the last dragon-shaped pattern was drawn, the whole wizard seemed to come alive. The powerful flame magic almost ignites the entire velocity space. Perfect, there is only one last cloak left, and it can be done. Louis thought so. Afia, but the moment Wizard was finished, the levitating cloak flew out of Louis' body and landed on Wizard's body. The suspended konoha began to change slowly, and finally changed into a state that perfectly matched the wizard. Wizard! Louis called softly. The wizard turned into a red ring and put it on Louis' hand. Among the red gems, a fire dragon was roaring wantonly. What Louis completed in the flow velocity space was not only the wizard in the basic form, but even the magic circle of the flame-flying dragon in the sublimated state. To underscore in the flow velocity space, Modu's voice could only read the word to. Louis revoked the flow space, and Modu's words continued immediately. What kind of strength does the venerable mage successor possess? The declaration of war, which was supposed to be good, suddenly became a little funny when Louis made it like this. Modu felt Louis' breath appearing on the top of the Himalayas at the moment when Louis revoked the flow velocity space. So you are there, Louis, you dare to fight? Modu shouted. Louis, don't come here, this is a trap set by Modu. Wang shouted loudly, wanting to remind Louis. Snapped. Snapped. The chains lashed Wang constantly, and each slap injected the power of magic into Wang's body, causing him to suffer even greater pain, but Wang just looked at Modu coldly. Tui. Modu's eyes became gloomy and cold, and the magic chain pierced Wang's eyes. Clang. The collision of magic made a metallic sound. Louis' flaming longsword slashed on Modu's magic chain, knocking it upside down and flying out. But Modu showed a smile, and Louis still appeared. Louis, you shouldn't have appeared. Wang said bitterly. It's okay, I'll get rid of him soon. Louis said with a smile, not paying attention to Modu at all. Louis, you finally appeared. I have been waiting for you for a month just to kill you with my own hands. I'm sorry, even if you are a girl waiting for me, I will feel too ugly, not to mention you are a man, or a bald man, have I ever said, do I hate bald men? Lu Yi's eyes were not friendly. Wang has taken good care of Louis during this month, so Louis's attitude towards Wang in Camartage is even better than that towards Ancient One. Modu should have done something to the king, and Louis smiled angrily, with murderous intent in his eyes. When you are about to die, let me see if you can still be so sharp. Modu snorted coldly. With a wave of his hand, all the disciples of Camartage were tied up and placed around, forming a gladiatorial arena. You just watch, let's kill the successor you fancy to Ancient One. Modu waved his hand lightly, the entire Camartage was surrounded by magic circles, and this was his home field. Looking at this spectacular scene, Louis let out a long breath and said, I hope you can let me have a better time playing. Wizard, Henshin. Chapter 150. As Louis' voice sounded, a bad premonition rose in Modu's heart. On Louis' left hand, the red ring glowed with red light, and there was the faint sound of dragon chant. Another magic weapon, how much did that old thing Ancient One give you? Modu was filled with resentment, Ancient One had never been so kind to him. But, how many artifacts does Louis have on him? Sling ring first. And the Lord of the Rings again. How could Mordo not be jealous? How could he not be, betrayal? The king stared dumbfounded at Louis' transformation, only he knew that Camartage would never have such a magic device. This is Louis' stuff. In the distant records, there has never been such an artifact recorded. Huge amounts of flame magic circles slowly passed through Louis' body from left to right. Go to hell. Modu felt more and more uneasy, he couldn't let Louis fully unleash the power of the magic weapon. Controlling the magic circle, the magic chains began to attack Louis constantly. Jingle. All attacks were blocked by the flame magic circle. Become invincible time. The magic circle passed by, and the sound of the dragon's roar was extremely passionate. An armor containing the power of fire magic fits perfectly with Louis' wizard. The magic chain wanted to continue to attack, but was caught by Louis casually, and the flame spread to the magic chain, burning and destroying. These flames even want to go back to the source, to find the source of the magic chain. This forced Modu to give up the control of the magic chain. Roar. With a dragon chant, the wizard's own breath destroyed the magic circle that Modu had arranged in advance on the ground. It's useless. Since I made arrangements in advance, I have already made plans. Before I die, these magic circles will never disappear. Modu sneered, and with a wave of his hands, the damaged magic circle on the ground was immediately repaired. The magic is hot, but behind the magic crystal mask, Louis' eyes are extremely cold. Louis has already thought of 100 ways to die for Modu. The only difference is that Louis' difficulty in choosing is at work. How do you want to die? Louis said coldly. I hope you will die for me. Modu shouted loudly, and Kamartaj's magic circle was fully activated. The ground is like a water flow, and the space is distorting. Obviously standing still, but the body is tilting, turning into a battle at a 90-degree angle. But Louis didn't feel uncomfortable at all, and Modu was already holding 2 magic circles and rushed towards Louis. In the magic circle, energy gathered, and then rushed towards Louis. Boom! The magic energy bomb exploded, but Louis had already avoided this attack. Wizard's word gun! Louis shouted softly, and a long flaming sword with a completely different style from the flaming magic sword appeared in his hand. Magic was used before, but this time Louis made a physical body and drew the relevant magic circle. The half of the flame sword was bent forward, and the blade also shrank. Gold magic bullets rushed towards Modu. Clang! Modu manipulated the ground of Kamartaj square and blocked it in front of him. There is no way for magic bullets to cause damage to Modu. Modu thought too clearly, he never thought of fighting Louis well from the very beginning. In case Lui uses the previous destructive armor again, Modu has no place to cry even if he dies. Therefore, Gedu has been preparing to use the magic circle to control Kamartaj. This time it was Kamartaj's forces that were fighting Louis. Cut, it's really troublesome. Louis said with a cold face. The magic gun switched back to the sword state, the sling ring opened the door of space, and Louis appeared behind the obstacle in the next second. Close combat, let me see how you block. Without further ado, Louis swung his sword and saw that there were still traces of flames burning in the air, almost melting Modu. Modu raised his foot and stepped on it, and the magic circle built a high wall to block the attack. The magic circles in both hands turned into sharp blades and slashed towards Louis. Louis narrowly dodged Modu's insidious attack, frowning. Modu smiled and said, my close combat strength is not bad. After all, the demon turned into 2 big swords and slashed towards Louis. At the same time, Modu suddenly shouted loudly, Louis! Louis looked up, and saw that at this moment, Modu was surrounded by black mist, and his whole body was suspended high like a god's mansion. In the magic circle, the ferocious Dormammu was tied to a dog chain, roaring and rushing towards Louis. Dormammu, I feel insulted. Louis realized that this was an illusion, and immediately backed away quickly. Boom! The 2 magic swords slashed to the ground, and even the magic circle exploded, and the previous illusion disappeared. Mordu's face was gloomy, and everything in Kamartaj was rising high and building high walls. This is trapping Louis in it. You were lucky just now, this time, you will definitely die. Modu somewhat understood Louis' method. The magic power of this magic armor is very strong, but not too strong. If it weren't for the fact that embracing the darkness during this period has increased his strength, it would have been quite difficult for Modu to deal with it. But it's over, you can die. Modu announced the death of Louis, as if he was telling a fact. Louis retreated back to the edge area, he could feel the power of the sling ring could rush out of here at any time, without being affected by the space blockade here. Modu seemed to see Louis' plan, and taunted and shouted, Louis, don't you want to kill me too? Are you just planning to escape? Louis shook his head, and said helplessly, I haven't figured out how to trap you. After all, with Kamartaj as my home field, it's a bit difficult for me to kill you, but you asked for it. Louis sneered, and the space gem in his body instantly sealed off the space in this area. As soon as Wizard stepped out, the power of the flames spread throughout the audience, and even the high walls that had been built were burned with flames. The power of the magic circle and the flames is at a stalemate, but there is nothing they can do. Louis, are you stupid? As I said, as long as I don't die, these demons will not be destroyed. Modu laughed. I feel that Louis is giving up resistance and giving up on himself. But Louis' next words made Modu's face change. Did I say I was going to destroy the magic circle? I just wanted to destroy your home court advantage. Before the words fell, Modu felt that the induction between himself and the magic circle was weakening. The flames and the magic circle were in a stalemate, which made it too late for the demon to respond to Modu's order. As soon as he wanted to respond, he was burned by the flames and recovered. This repetition directly destroyed Modu's home court. Is it fair now, what do you think, Modu? Louis' tone was slightly cynical. But every word is murderous. Chapter 116. Without home court advantage, I will still kill you. Modu's face turned black, his brows were tightly wrinkled, and he, who had given up his home court advantage, was even more terrifying than before. I still had the idea of playing around before, but now he wanted to kill Louis desperately. Louis felt that everything around him became illusory, which was a manifestation of the effect of spiritual power on reality. Louis became cautious. He was deceived by Modu's illusion before and almost suffered a big loss. The ancient will was mobilized by Louis to protect himself from the influence of spiritual power. Modu, who embraces the darkness and accepts the power of Dormammu, has the most obvious spiritual improvement. Outside the dual space. Because the wizard's flame was entangled with the magic circle, Modu's control decreased. All the disciples of Kamartaj were freed. Everyone gathered together and looked at the 493 battle space with sorrow on their faces. They knew that Louis and Modu were dueling inside, but now, no one knew who would win. We must rescue Louis, he will be the supreme mage in the future. Wang Shen said. He knew very well that Ancient One had already made a plan, but it was rejected by Louis. Although it is difficult to understand Louis' refusal, there is no doubt. Louis is the hope of Kamartaj, the hope of the earth. Yes. Yes. Hearing the king's voice, everyone seemed to have their own backbone, and everyone was doing their best to use magic to attack the dual space. Modu and Louis' expressions changed at the same time. Neither of them wanted the dual space to be broken, and both wanted to kill each other. Kill it with your own hands. It seems that there was an accident, wait for me for a while. Louis directly opened the door of space with the sling ring, and came outside the arena. Modu also restrained his breath, quietly watching the situation outside the gate of space. Seeing that the door of space in the sky was opened, everyone subconsciously aimed their magic at the sky. But what appeared was the wizard. Louis, are you okay? Wang asked eagerly. I'm fine, you guys wait here, I'll come out after I beat Yuandu to death. Louis said quite confidently. Modu in the dual space snorted coldly. Wang and the others looked at Louis dumbfounded, and then looked at Modu in the dual space through the space gate. Everyone's brains seemed to be down. Can you still play like this? Do you want to be so outrageous? Seeing that everyone was silent, Louis felt that he had explained it clearly, and turned back to the dual space. But what ushered in was an energy burst from Modu. But Louis had been prepared for a long time, and the flaming sword directly slashed on the energy burst. Boom! With huge amounts of explosion, even Louis took several steps back. Cut, I knew you would sneak attack, trash. Louis said disdainfully. Modu just had a cold face, a duel is unscrupulous, and a sneak attack is the fastest way to solve the battle. It's just that it was predicted by Louis in advance, so there is no way. However, Louis dodged Modu's sneak attack, but a strange smile appeared on Yuandu's face. Seeing this smile, Louis felt alert and suddenly felt bad. Just as he was about to leave the spot, he found that his legs were being grabbed. Dark tentacles. The dark tentacles were crumbling and dilapidated in the flames. But even so, it is enough to delay Louis. The magic circle under Louis' feet, which was entangled with the flames, lit up with a fiery light. Extremely dangerous. Boom! 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 A series of magic circle explosions, even the outside world can hear the sound. The entire dual space is crumbling. Modu sneered, he restrained his breath, released the dark tentacles, and then forced Louis back with a sneak attack. Everything is to trigger the explosion of the magic circle. With such a large number of magic circles detonated, Modu believed that Louis would definitely die in it. Modu has almost seen the scene where he killed Louis, punched Ancient One in the future, and stepped on Dormammu. But the flames in all directions did not weaken at all, and even faintly increased. Boom! The roar of the dragon's roar continued, and the flames completely wiped out the breath of the explosion. Black's robes turned into fiery red, and an oval magic crystal was embedded in the center of Gold's forehead. A flying dragon made of flames roared inside. The shoulder armor and breastplate show the appearance of a dragon's head. This is the wizard dash the form of the flame dragon. The robe was raised slightly, quelling the remaining power of the explosion. Tread. Tread. Louis walked in step by step, unhurriedly. Modu was a little flustered for a while, but he quickly regained his composure, and said, "Don't think that if you change your appearance, I will be afraid of you. No matter what you become, you will die today. Motu's spiritual power filled the entire space, forcibly suppressing the flame that Louis used to entangle the demon. Numerous magic circles were fully mobilized to surround the wizard. Louis stretched out his hand and pressed it on the magic circle. Boom! The magic flame burned, directly burning the magic circle clean. It's useless, as long as I don't die, the magic circle will continue to repair even if you... Motu sneered, but his voice stopped abruptly. He just said that the magic circle will continue to be repaired, and saw that the magic circle destroyed by Louis completely dissipated, leaving nothing behind. Constantly repairing? Hee hee. Louis smiled mockingly. The magic flame swept across all the magic circles, producing a violent explosion. Boom! Boom! The sound of the explosion was even worse than before. The Kamartaj disciples standing outside have been surrounded. With such an explosion, how terrifying would the battle inside be? This is simply a fight between gods. No wonder Louis will be the next supreme mage handpicked by the teacher. It all makes sense. No one thought, even Motu, that Louis would take the initiative to detonate the magic 0.3 magic circle. An icy voice sounded from the center of the explosion, overshadowing the sound of the explosion. Is it difficult to detonate the center of the magic circle and prevent it from recovering? Louis asked calmly. Is it hard? These words were like a sword piercing through Motu's heart. Is it hard? Definitely not difficult. But which fool would detonate it on its own initiative like you, and the damage from the explosion must be borne by yourself. Louis suffered the damage from the collective explosion of these magic circles so lightly, and then remained unscathed. The cloak is still brand new, and the magic crystal has no trace of battle. It was as if the person who detonated the magic circle just now was not Louis. What other tricks do you have? Louis asked, aiming the magic gun in his hand at Motu. Gold's bullets are blooming, and it seems that there are fire dragons entwined, posing a great threat to Motu. Chapter 117. Cold. Never. What other tricks do you have? This sentence seems to be mocking Motu's overreaching. Motu looked bleak and muttered, but in the end he didn't say anything. Pat. There was a crisp kneeling sound, and the burning flames on the ground began to climb onto Motu's body. The pain made his face pale, and the burning made his body tremble. He lost. Completely defeated. There is no suspense in defeat. Louis was condescending, looking indifferently at Motu who was kneeling on the ground. Is this your last resort? Louis asked. Motu lowered his head, as if acquiescing. Het. Louis said softly, his contempt was very obvious. Clatter. 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 Louis turned around and left, leaving Motu with the back of Red's cloak. The sling ring opened the door to the space, and the disciples of Kamartaj outside were waiting for the return of the winner. Motu 05, whose head was lowered, at the moment's expression became more ferocious. The dark breath made Motu look like a monster, and the overwhelming darkness enveloped Louis. This is his last chance, he wants to kill with one blow. Kill Louis. In an instant, lightning and flint. Apologize. The dark tentacles hovered 2 inches above Louis' head, and Motu's knife stopped abruptly in his mouth. Motu looked in disbelief at the flaming long sword piercing his chest. Louis' sword pierced into Motu's chest, mercilessly, killing with one blow. How is it possible? Didn't you let me go? Motu's voice became weaker and weaker. Obviously it shouldn't be like this. It should be that he must kill Louis, and then the winner will be king. But why is the plot of at the moment completely different from what I thought? Louis calmly let go of the hand holding the sword, and continued to walk forward as if there was no one else. Motu's eyes gradually lost focus, and he could no longer know the answer. The flames spread from Motu's chest, burning and destroying. The darkness belonging to Motu was also completely burned and ended by the flame of Louis Wizard. Motu's death completely unraveled the dual space, and the land belonging to Kamartaj began to fall inch by inch, exposing the sunny weather outside. I will never leave any enemies for myself. Louis' voice rang out. All the disciples of Kamartaj cheered loudly when they saw the wizard appear. Louis' victory represented a victory for Kamartaj's side. Mr. Louis is really amazing. You should call him brother, brother is so good. Is this the future supreme mage? Love love love. Is this the follower of Dormammu? It's really funny, brother. Louis lifted the wizard armor, and walked down the sky step by step, like a god man. Wang was also relieved to see that Louis was safe and sound. Louis, you are indeed a genius who is one in a million, an ancient one mage saw you right. Louis couldn't laugh or cry, but in the end he didn't refute the king's words, but ancient one mage was very optimistic about himself and wanted to become the supreme mage. However, I really don't have this plan. That. Wang looked at Louis, he had a question, and he didn't know whether to ask it or not. Go ahead. Louis smiled. Modu, he. Wang still wanted to ask what happened to Modu. Don't worry, you will never see him again, Louis said. Hearing Louis' answer, Wang breathed a sigh of relief. That's good, that's good. As Kamartaj's most outstanding disciple before Louis came, Mordo was still alive and betrayed Kamartaj. For Kamartaj, then, will be a huge amounts of threat. Because Modu knows many of Kamartaj's arrangements and is familiar with Kamartaj's magic defense array. The night Louis defeated the betrayer Mordo, Kamartaj fell into a rare revelry, although the square was completely destroyed. Except for Ancient One Mage, no one seems to have the magic power to restore the square. Louis waited until the Ancient One Mage came back in the middle of the night. Kamartaj, library. The bright magic lights flickered, and the magic power of Ancient One Mage affected the surrounding magic fluctuations. It seems that I didn't disturb your carnival. Ancient One Mage watched Kamartaj, who wanted to be peaceful, fall into the ocean of joy, and was speechless for a while. I've been practicing magic for too long, and I still need to be happy once in a while, otherwise, like Modu, I'll have mental problems. Louis made no secret of his dislike for meditation. Perhaps you are right, not everyone can accept long-term meditation. Ancient One looked at the bonfire lit by the magic flame in the square, and said with a smile. It's okay to indulge once in a while, Louis replied. Louis knew that the long-distance travel mentioned by Ancient One was actually just observing the battle in a certain space. Number once Louis appears in danger, Ancient One will definitely help. However, Louis was never in danger. Even if it was Modu's desperate attack at the end, Louis was already prepared. What amazed Ancient One was not only Louis' decisive killing, but more importantly, Louis' magical armor. Is this really a magic tool made by Qi Tian? Ancient One was very curious, but didn't ask. These were all Louis' secrets. 030 has obtained everything you need, are you planning to leave next? Well, I am very grateful for the help during this time. If Kamartaj is in trouble, I will definitely come to help. What if I want you to stay to replace Supreme Mage? Then I'm sorry, I refuse. If Ancient One Mage, you are going to force me to stay, then I will also try to see if I can get out. Louis said jokingly. He made his attitude very clear, unyielding to death. In fact, Louis knew too much about the character of Ancient One. It's not necessary for Ancient One to turn against Louis because of these things. Just as Louis thought, Ancient One could only shake his head helplessly at Louis's joking threat. I can only hope that Louis, a magical genius, can turn his prodigal son back one day. However, in any case, Yin Yi did not see the existence of darkness on Louis. Louis, if I want you to be in charge of taking over Holy Place in New York, would you like it? You will be responsible for all the personnel in Holy Place. Ancient One offered an offer that Louis couldn't refuse. This is Kamartaj's most holy place in New York, and even S.H.I.E.L.D. needs to be vigilant. A single mage might not scare S.H.I.E.L.D., but a pack of mage. There is a saying that goes like this. Mage will always be your uncle. Chapter 118. Louis didn't agree directly, but was thinking. To Holy Place is very important to Kamartaj. Ancient One gave up a to Holy Place in this way, which still made Louis unable to understand. Louis didn't want to understand, looked at Ancient One, and asked calmly, why? I want to know the reason. My hunch is that New York is going to face a crisis, and Holy Place will be threatened by huge amounts of people. I need someone to guard New York and Holy Place. Ancient One replied. This comes from the whim of Ancient One. After Louis trapped Dormammu that day, Ancient One thought he could take it easy, but immediately felt a greater threat. This is targeting the planet, and New York is the first to bear the brunt. Ancient One vaguely suspected that this threat was caused by Louis. But in the same way, only Louis can solve it. Louis thought about the crisis that New York was facing, and Louis knew very well that it must be because he exposed the location of the space gem and time gem, allowing Thanos to detect it. However, the enemy coming this time may still be Loki. Louis showed a slight smile, and said, "That's the decision. I happen to live in New York, so I can take care of Holy Place." However, what Louis thought in his heart was finally have the opportunity to test that alchemy formation. Ancient One didn't know what Louis was thinking. Hearing that Louis agreed, Ancient One was also relieved. In doing so, she also tied Louis and Kamartage together. If Kamartage is in danger in the future, even for the sake of New York and Holy Place, Louis needs to help. After all, Louis didn't want to be the supreme mage. Ancient One didn't know when he would perish. "I'm going to contact Holy Place now. You will be the manager of Holy Place in New York in the future. I will let Wang accompany you." Ancient One thought about it, and decided to let Wang accompany Louis to help him get familiar with the Holy Place. Wang is familiar with all major places and holy places. If you don't have time to manage, you can leave it to Wang. That's it. I feel more at ease with the king. Louis nodded. He really doesn't have time to manage the holy place, it's much more convenient to have Wang around. The most important thing is that Wang's character is still very much to Louis' liking. He doesn't talk much, but does things down to earth, and belongs to the same category as Dr. Banner. There is no need to worry about such things as committing crimes. If you are ready to leave now, you can go directly to New York to Holy Place through the portal. Ancient One said. Louis thought for a while, and he didn't have much to miss in Kamartage, so he nodded. Boom boom boom. Wang quickly knocked on the door of the room, but looking out from the outside, there were two figures standing outside. "Come in." One crunch. The door was pushed open by the king, and standing beside the king was Caecilius. Mordo used black magic to trap his soul in a corner before, and after Mordo died, the black magic was automatically released, but Caecilius still looked very weak. His complexion was pale and his breath was vain. When he saw Louis, Caecilius was a little excited. He had already heard about the fact that Louis showed his might and defeated Mordo. Sure enough, this is his belief, powerful and invincible. Wang and Caecilius stood at the door, wondering whether to come in or not. "Come in," Ancient One said. Both Wang and Caecilius breathed a sigh of relief. "Caecilius, what can you do?" Ancient One asked. Caecilius is also his very valued disciple. After Mordo betrayed and was killed by Louis, Ancient One originally wanted to hand over many matters of Kamartage to Caecilius. But Caecilius appeared here, which gave Ancient One a bad feeling. Hearing Ancient One's question, Caecilius immediately said excitedly, "Teacher, please let me go down the mountain, I want to follow Mr. Louis." When Caecilius mentioned Louis, there was a frenzy in his eyes. "This?" Ancient One frowned. "I was ready to focus on cultivating Caecilius, but he actually wanted to follow Louis." This caused Ancient One a bit of a headache. Louis took away the two people he liked at once, and killed one. Louis is also confused. In the original book, Caecilius, shouldn't you be disappointed in Ancient One, then fall into darkness and become Dormammu's lackey? Why are you changing your mind now? Could it be that Mordo embraced the darkness and saved Caecilius? Louis didn't react at all, he became Caecilius' belief, and he just thought that he changed the direction of the plot. Seeing that both Ancient One and Louis were hesitating, Caecilius fell to his knees and shouted loudly, "Teacher, I really want to follow Mr. Louis, please let me go down the mountain. Mr. Louis, please let me follow you." Both Ancient One and Louis felt the firmness and sincerity in Caecilius' words. Louis can only attribute this time to the fact that his personality is too strong, so big that he can take both men and women, and he can be accepted as a younger brother when he meets any villain. "Louis, narcissism is not good, I must correct it next time." Ancient One Mage, "I see, or let Caecilius come back to New York with me." Louis also persuaded. He felt that Ancient One didn't want to let people go. Hearing Louis' words, Ancient One finally sighed and said softly, "Then you and Louis will go to the holy place in New York together. Practice magic well, don't embarrass Kamartage outside, and don't cause trouble." Ancient One urged earnestly. Ancient One is very sympathetic to Caecilius' tragic experience, and hopes that Caecilius can find his own ideal of life when he follows Louis. As everyone knows, Caecilius' ideal of life has become Louis. 2. Jian Nyohao, Holy Place. Caecilius was stunned. This is where the mighty mage from Kamartage can only go, he didn't get to the holy place at all. "Well, can I also go to holy place?" Caecilius was a little excited. This is the place where all the disciples of Kamartage want to go, the world of the strong. Follow me and you can go. Lui smiled. Although Caecilius was much older than himself, Louis didn't mind having an extra younger brother at all. Get ready, you can go. Ancient One really didn't want to see Louis PG people off here. Now she wished that Louis would leave immediately. I'm going to pack some clothes. Caecilius said props immediately. Hey! Ancient One looked at himself, a disciple without eyesight, unkindly. Caecilius lowered his head cowardly and said, No, it's nothing. Chapter 119. Louis patted Caecilius on the shoulder and said, When you arrive in New York, you have everything, don't worry. Caecilius nodded emphatically, he believed Louis now. Ancient One built huge amounts of magic circles out of thin air, and connected with the teleportation circles from New York to Holy Place. Hum. The resonance sounded, and the portal was opened. Louis, Wang, and Caecilius walked slowly through the portal. On the other side of the door is the breath of freedom in New York. Several mages in yellow robes were already standing there to greet them. Seeing Louis, he immediately made a greeting gesture respectfully. From this moment on, Louis is the boss from New York to Holy Place. There are not many people from New York to Holy Place, after all, not every law is idle. Most people hide their true identities and work outside, only a few people are inside the Holy Place. To enter the Holy Place, you need to pass a specific magic circle to enter, or people with special magical abilities will also be automatically monitored to enter the Holy Place. Many people in Kamartage were recruited in this way, and members of the Holy Place are also responsible for the reserve of disciples in Kamartage. While walking, Wang introduced the situation to Holy Place to Louis. This is the connecting point of the multi-universe. There are 2 other places on the Earth. New York should be located here. Wang thought for a while. 420 Gridlin Village Center, No 117A, Brick Street. Under Louis's sense of space, the location here is very clear. However, when Louis was in the outside world, he never had the perception that there is actually a holy place here. This is why Louis knew that there was a holy place in New York, but he never knew where it was. The multi-universe is connected here, which naturally shields Louis' space induction. Louis can clearly feel that in the holy place, there is a breath of space from other universes. Fortunately, most of them are harmless. Yes, that's right, it's here. Wang echoed. Although he didn't know why Louis knew the location of the holy place, Wang subconsciously ignored this question. Caecilius followed Louis step by step, and everything here completely subverted his imagination. Mr. Louis, are you going to live in the holy place, or in your own home? Tian told the general situation of the holy place. I'll still live in my own home. The penance life is not suitable for me. Louis said with a smile, he misses the soft bed at home very much now. What about me? Card, AFDC, Celius asked immediately. He still doesn't know how to arrange himself. In fairness, he wanted to be by Louis' side. I will arrange a room for you. There are a lot of vacant rooms in Holy Place. Tian Shen said. No need, let Caecilius go back with me, I also need help there. Louis said. Caecilius can do magic. If you want to create armor related to magic, Caecilius is also an indispensable existence. I'll follow Mr. Louis. Caecilius said immediately. Knowing that Louis needed him, Caecilius felt great satisfaction in his heart. This is a need from faith. Louis and Wang didn't think about what Caecilius was thinking, because Ancient One told Louis and Wang about his sense of crisis. Therefore, Wang now also has some headaches. Recently, let the members who go to Holy Place be more vigilant. If there is a problem, return to Holy Place immediately. Louis ordered. Only Louis can make such a decision. Yes. Wang also acknowledged Louis' leadership. Also, get everyone ready for battle. Louis said in a deep voice. The Avengers are a bit miserable right now because of Louis. The Avengers really can't be counted on against the Chitauri army led by Loki. Louis wouldn't mind letting the Avengers fight ahead if he could. After issuing some defensive orders, Louis returned to the Stark building with Caecilius. The door of space opened, Louis and Caecilius jumped out. Sit casually, what do you want to drink? I'll go see if other people are here. Louis returned home, and his tone became more relaxed. Mr. Louis, is this your home? Caecilius looked confused. He never thought that Louis would have such a family property. Yet. Louis took a can of Coke from the refrigerator and threw it at Caecilius. J.A.R.V.I.S is also not at home. It seems that the main program was taken away by Tony. Caecilius frantically took the coke, which he hadn't had in years. Although he had never dealt with such a large group before entering Camartage, this did not prevent Caecilius from hearing the name of Stark Industry. Mr. Lewis, this is the Stark Industrial Building. Caecilius felt his values have been deeply hit. Is my belief actually so rich? Lewis supported his chin and meditated. It seemed that he hadn't introduced himself to his little follower. After organizing the language, Lewis lowered his voice and introduced, "Get to know me again, Lewis. Stark Industry belongs to my family." That kind of righteous pride ruthlessly flaunted a wave of wealth in front of Caecilius. Caecilius just felt that his brain was not enough. "Aren't you an old monster? When did you become a director of Stark Industries again? You sit here for a while." Lewis arranged for Caecilius and walked into the laboratory by himself. The instruments in the laboratory are all working, but there is no one there. Diddy Lewis entered a series of passwords into the main console, and then passed iris and fingerprint verification. Obtained the control authority of the main console. The experiment log shows that neither Banner nor Ethan was lazy during this time. Banner actually designed the basic form of 4s, waiting for 10 implementation tests. On Ethan's side, the 555 series cars have already completed the Delta and Orga cars, and the type is similar to that of Fizza, so there is a lesson from the past. It will be much easier too. Summer, but when facing Kaiza and Pega, it is not so simple. Lewis put the 2 completed cars into the corresponding armor space. On the main control platform that was originally empty, a screen suddenly flashed. In the picture, there is a huge amounts of factory, countless large and small file size parts are being processed and transported to various places. Tony was wearing a suit and sunglasses, looking like a boss inspecting his territory. "Louis, are you back?" Tony took off his sunglasses and said to the camera. Chapter 120. Tony? Are you experiencing the life of an assembly line worker for yourself now? When Lewis saw Tony, he taunted him without saying a word. J.A.R.V.I.S separated a subsidiary system from the main system and left it in the laboratory for operation. That's why, Tony will know the news of Lewis' return. "I'm not that bored, I'm just here to see how things are going." Tony zoomed up so Louis could see the bigger scene. In the lens, at a glance, everything is densely packed with industrialized assembly lines. "Are you moving all the assembly lines in New York here?" Lewis was dumbfounded. "What is this? More than that, I also mobilized the assembly lines in other regions. After all, this is a project proposed by the Army and that SHIELD," Tony explained. "Wait a minute, you said the military in S.H.I.E.L.D. Louis' mind flashed. Army plus S.H.I.E.L.D equals General Ross plus Avengers Alliance. No wonder, a lot of the metal Louis saw was standard combat ready. Aerospace carrier. This is the only answer in Lewis's mind right now. It was originally because Tony joined the Avengers that Tony invested in an aerospace aircraft carrier. But now, General Ross has joined the Avengers, the Army plus S.H.I.E.L.D, it is really possible to build an aerospace aircraft carrier. "Tony, you don't sell half, do you?" Louis asked. "Definitely impossible, because the cost is difficult to estimate, and I have raised the price by 30%, but it seems that our customers are not short of money," Tony said with a smile. Just the revenue from the aerospace aircraft carrier project is worth nearly half a year's net profit of Stark Industries. Stark Industries has made a lot of money this time. Lewis was also relieved, as long as he didn't lose money. He was really worried that Tony would be foolish enough to be fooled by Fury into investing in such an aerospace carrier. "By the way, where are Tony, Ethan, and Banner?" Lewis asked suspiciously. "They are also here. As a technical consultant, S.H.I.E.L.D pays a lot. But Banner? Don't worry, I know, it's been dealt with, I prepared a fake identity for Banner, it's enough." "That's good, where are you now? I'll go and see." Lewis breathed a sigh of relief, and his tone became more relaxed. He also wanted to see how Tony planned to build such a large aerospace aircraft carrier. After all, the main system of J.A.R.V.I.S has been pulled over to perform calculations, and it is conceivable that the amount of calculation data involved is huge. "I'll let J.A.R.V.I.S guide you, just follow along," Tony said. After a while, the voice of J.A.R.V.I.S suddenly appeared on Louis' cell phone. Mr. Louis, Artificial Intelligence Navigation, J.A.R.V.I.S, I am very happy to serve you. J.A.R.V.I.S made a small joke. Louis said to Tony, well, see you later, I'll be there soon. After all, Louis exited the main console and glanced at the map navigation given by JARVIS. There is already an approximate distance in my heart. Caecilius, get ready, we're going out, I'll take you to meet other people. Louis walked to the living room, waved his hand and opened the door of the sling ring's space. The same file-size door of space appeared at the other end of a strange forest. Chikhacha. There was a rustling of shoes against piles of leaves, and here Louis and Caecilius appeared. Where is this? Caecilius looked around, and there were trees as far as he could see. Come with me, Louis said. The two walked in the woods for about 10 minutes before they came out, and a huge amount of plain landform appeared in front of the two of them. On this huge amount of flat land, countless temporary factories are working overtime, and the sound of machinery is coming and going. The most comprehensive and advanced technology on the modern Earth is condensed here. Here's. Caecilius looked at everything in front of him in surprise. Before he finished speaking, he felt the danger, and held the magic circle in his hand. Clang! Clang! Two crisp sounds sounded, and the bullet emitting white smoke twisted and fell to the ground. Don't move, put down the weapon in your hand. A full-armed guard appeared here. In each hand is a fully loaded submachine gun, produced by Stark Industries. Mr. Louis, do you want me? Caecilius saw that this group of common people dared to attack him and others, and there was a trace of disdain in his eyes. After learning magic, there will be a natural feeling of superiority. Caecilius originally wasn't a very kind person either. No need. Louis stopped Caecilius from attacking. If Caecilius really wanted to do it, none of these people would be able to escape. Caecilius extinguished the magic circle in his hand. Louis walked to the front, and said with a smile, I am Louis, a member of SHIELD. If you still have doubts about my identity, you can ask your chief. Louis threw the tag representing his S.H.I.E.L.D identity to the leading captain. Everyone in this team exchanged opinions, confirmed that there was no problem with Louis' identity, and their tone became more friendly. 0. Come with us, I will take you to the garrison area. Louis and Caecilius immediately followed the squad. And the news of Louis' appearance reached Fury's ears immediately. What? Louis, how did he come here? No, how did he know? Fury felt his head start spinning again. I'm afraid Tony said it. Phil Coulson said helplessly. Since you're here, let's go and have a look. I also really want to see what kind of abilities this Louis has. Steve picked up his shield, and he has now become the backbone of the Avengers team. Definitely, he also directed Hawkeye and Black Widow. General Ross, he commanded nothing. Thor is still in Asgard. Fury, Phil Coulson, General Ross, Black Widow, Hawkeye, Steve, the unprecedented high-level trips made everyone wonder if the president is here. Mr. Louis, why don't you let me do it? Caecilius stayed in Camartage for a long time, and almost forgot how to handle things correctly. If you're not an enemy, you don't need to do anything. Louis explained. The two approached the garrison area, and Louis saw Fury and others approaching from a long distance. I don't know why, but I'm used to seeing Ancient One's hairstyle, and when I look at Fury again, I get a very transparent feeling. Sure enough, the marinated egg looks a little more friendly. Louis started saying hello from afar, shouting, Director Nick Fury, I miss you so much. Fury only felt his head hurt even more. Chapter 121. Seeing Louis's harmless face, Fury had the feeling that he had fallen into a conspiracy. There is no way, I have been tricked by Louis too many times, and I have been tricked out of experience. With a cold face, Fury nodded to Louis symbolically. In front of these soldiers, he must maintain his image. Can't collapse, can't collapse. Louis ignorantly shouted, Fury, you look good recently, you've made a fortune, I'm really grateful to Director Nick Fury for taking care of our small business of Stark Industries. Mommy Falk. Fury's expression darkened instantly, and the color of the marinated egg deepened. The expression controller is out of control. You Stark Industries call it a small business? Should S.H.I.E.L.D die on the spot? Fury really wanted to strangle the smiling man standing in front of him. Swish 377. A figure blows past with a gust of wind. The speed was so fast that even Caecilius couldn't react. The combat leather boots of Black Widow had already been firmly grasped by Lewis, but the next move was even more merciless. A military combat dagger was drawn towards Lewis. As long as he was touched, a scar would be drawn on Lewis' face. Black Widow also twisted his waist to make his movements more natural. "Mr. Louis," Caecilius called out in panic. The magic circle in his hand subconsciously smashed towards Black Widow. Lewis pushed Caecilius back with the magic circle with one hand, released Black Widow's ankle with the other hand, and pinched the blade of the dagger with 2 fingers like steel bars. Squeak! Black Widow used all the strength in his body to stab forward, but he couldn't save it. Click! The dagger was broken, and the gold and stone were shattered. Black Widow retreated quickly, but Lewis was faster, and he pulled Black Widow, who was about to retreat, into his arms with his backhand. Okay, don't make trouble, Natasha Romanoff, it's hard to meet up once, don't treat me like this. Lewis laughed lightly. Putting his right hand on Black Widow's waist disarmed her in an instant. Lewis, it was you who made me wait in Yellowstone National Park for 3 days. Black Widow looked at Lewis angrily. The resentful eyes made Lewis feel a little embarrassed. Ha 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 ha, well, I'm sorry, I didn't ask you to wait for me. Lewis said haha, trying to get away with it. Release. Black Widow said coldly. Lewis pinched his soft waist, then let go immediately, and jumped back a step. Black Widow glared at Lewis, but Lewis acted like I didn't know anything, which made people itch. Lewis, that thing is still in your hand. Fury saw that Black Widow failed, and his expression didn't change at all. This was originally a temptation, it was impossible to kill Lewis, and there was no way to kill him. The aerospace aircraft carrier has to be built by Stark Industries. What? Director Nick Fury, I don't know what you're talking about. Lewis smiled, not fooled at all. Isn't it Tesseract? Lewis didn't intend to hide this matter for how long. It's just that S.H.I.E.L.D didn't react until now, and this reaction speed is really a bit slow enough. Humph. Fury is now 10,000% sure that the Tesseract is in Lewis' hands. To be exact, it has always been in the hands of Lewis. The two organizations S.H.I.E.L.D and Hydra were played around by Lewis alone. But even if he knew, Fury couldn't do anything about it. Technology still needs the support of Stark Industry, and the combined combat power is not enough for Lewis alone. What to fight? Headshot? Not to mention, there are more and more strange people around Lewis. The previous dwarf, in Thor's introduction, is one of the blacksmiths of Wordheim, and its combat effectiveness is also very strong. The person next to Lewis today, everyone could clearly see the magic circle just now. While Fury was apprehensive, he was also a little jealous. Damn, why did Lewis have such good luck, and his Avengers are all a mess up to now? Sour, it was so sour. Fury has completely turned into lemon essence, and his eyes are greedy when he thinks of the people around Lewis. The dwarf clan blacksmith, Iron Man Tony, and this demon mage, it would be great if they all joined the Avengers. Meanwhile, Fury Sour Lemons, Tiff came over, primly dressed and not looking so funny. Mr. Lewis, hello, I'm the captain of the Avengers. Steve. Hi, Louis Stark. Clasping 2 hands together, Louis immediately felt that Captain America was gaining strength. Another trial, is it over yet? Steve originally wanted to test Louis' strength, but no matter how much strength he used, Louis still didn't change his face. FT. 20%. 80%. 90%. +5. Steve's face was flushed, but in return Louis said lightly, Mr. Steve, you don't look well, do you want to go to the hospital? No, Steve responded. But as soon as the voice fell, he felt that Louis' palm was like steel, and he was going through the fire. Creak. Creak. Steve felt like he could hear his own bones cracking. The flushed face turned white little by little, lost its color, and Steve couldn't feel his hands anymore. Seeing Captain America like this, Louis said with satisfaction, this way his face is almost rosy, Mr. Steve, if you have any health problems, you can come to me, I am good at curing diseases and saving lives. Louis patted Steve on the shoulder, the hand unharmed. Captain America looked at Louis in bewilderment, and he didn't even realize when Louis let go. It's over, I can't feel the existence of this hand. Director Nick Fury, I might actually have to go to the hospital. Steve said with a stiff face. Are you still uncomfortable? Do you want me to look at it for you? Lewis took over the conversation. 0.0 No, Mr. Lewis, I don't bother you. Captain America fled. This Lewis is simply a devil. Without knowing the identity of the enemy, Captain America doesn't want to confront him at all. Lewis looked at the fleeing Captain America with satisfaction, with a brighter smile on his face. Alas, another lesson learned. Director Nick Fury, let's go and see what Tony is doing. Louis said. Seeing the smile on Louis's face, Fury shuddered. This time the attempt obviously ended in failure. The only thing that can be known is that Louis' strength has become increasingly unfathomable. This is a monster, why there are such monster-level existences on the earth? Fury finally sighed helplessly and said, come with me. Chapter 122. Louis and Fury walked side by side, and everyone else could only follow behind. With this lineup, the president doesn't have this pomp when he comes. Superhero is always superior to others, and wants to impress them. Or, you, like Fury, have means and scheming. Or, you are like Lewis, suppressing the audience, and blowing up anyone who refuses to accept it. Caecilius followed behind Lewis, vigilant about everything around him. Although Lewis told him not to act rashly, he felt that it was his mistake for not reacting to the woman's attack before. This is the first time I have met such an agent who can hide his aura so well. The identity of Caecilius, when he appeared beside Lewis, started a global search. Along the way, tight defenses can be seen everywhere. Each production line is maintaining a 24-hour work task. Lewis frowned, wondering why S.H.I.E.L.D was so anxious to build an aerospace carrier. And, this time there is a military background in it, with General Ross making the connection. This allows the military to have a reasonable flow of military spending, rather than putting it in external wars. Everyone soon came to the main production line of 05, where assembly was going on. On the side of the assembly line is a temporary laboratory with huge amounts of. Here is the center. Tony is among them, occasionally mobilizing relevant research data. Tony! Louis yelled. Louis, you came too late. Tony smiled, walked forward, and the two hugged after a long absence. Be safe. This is a special code that only two people know. It proves that it is not very safe here. Let me show you the main plan of this aerospace carrier. Tony brought Lewis to the main console. The large screen here shows a giant aircraft carrier structure diagram. As an aerospace carrier based on an aircraft carrier, the huge amounts of draft warehouses have been reduced, and material warehouses and ammunition depots have been added. You really dare to think about it. Lewis saw several key points, and he knew the plan of the space carrier. This is an unprecedented air combat fortress. This is a giant-level weapon of war. Anyone who thinks of this guy should be court-martialed, and he definitely doesn't deserve the Bell Peace Prize, Louis complained. The winner is king. The Peace Prize is a product of hegemony. Fury stepped forward and said coldly. Seeing the Big Mac on the main console screen, Fury seemed to see a glorious moment in the future. This giant, led by Fury and seconded by General Ross, represents the ambitions of two groups. It's no wonder that such a large sum of funds has been mobilized. Mr. Tony, how's it going? Fury asked. Recently, anti-gravity research is being carried out, and there is no problem with anti-gravity vehicles, but when used on such a huge aerospace carrier, the anti-gravity system needs to undergo a stress test. Tony replied. As soon as possible, 30% of the deposit has been transferred to Stark Industries' account. Don't worry, I said it will be done within a year, and it will definitely be done. Tony is quite confident. Louis, of course, believed what Tony said, and it looked like he was just getting started. However, with so many production lines working together, the effort generated is huge amounts of. However, seeing this space carrier, Lewis thought of its ending. Life is like summer flowers, and death is brilliant. Thinking of this, Lewis couldn't help laughing. What are you laughing at? Fury, who had been observing Lewis, couldn't help asking. It's nothing, just think of something happy. What joy! That's right, if such a large aerospace aircraft carrier explodes, it will definitely be spectacular. Fury? Tony? Everyone present? What the hell are you talking about? Please be human. Even if Fury knew that Lewis was watching a joke, his face could not help but gloomy when he heard this kind of joke. He couldn't figure out whether Louis was threatening. "Mr. Tony, the helicarrier's defense ability is doubled, and I want to make it indestructible," Fury said coldly. "This?" Tony struggled. "I'll add money," Fury said. "No problem." Louis immediately agreed in place of Tony. "It's not easy to run a small business, you can earn more if you can." Seeing that Louis agreed so happily, Fury frowned, realizing that things were not simple. Did he get tricked by Louis again? The thought of this possibility gave Fury the urge to curse. "Director Nick Fury, Tony and I want to discuss the feasibility and price of the defensive performance, so I won't accompany you." Louis sent Fury and others away happily with this profiteer's tone. Fury didn't want to see Louis' face either, so he turned his head and walked away. Louis looked at the back of Fury and others leaving, his eyes slightly gloomy. Louis zoomed in on the picture of the main console, and specially enlarged and marked the anti-gravity system. "This is the idea of the anti-gravity car many years ago," Louis said. He has long known the anti-gravity technology used by the space carrier, which originated from Howard Stark's early guesses. Howard Stark is an even smarter genius than Tony. I found in his relics, S.H.I.E.L.D should also have a backup left by him, that's why Fury found me and planned to build 10 Super 903 airspace aircraft carriers. This big guy's idea is also his idea, and it is sealed as a top-secret file. It was only after Tony got in touch with Fury that he realized just how terrifying his father's ability was back then. The aerospace carrier has raised it to a special height. Fury tried to ask me to join the Avengers at one point, and I said no. It's good to refuse. There is no need to join in the first place. It is not up to us to save the world. If we don't harm the world, it is our greatest contribution to the world. Louis said heresy truth. These words were all for Fury. Fury, who wanted to know what Tony and Louis were going to say through the bug, almost died of anger when he heard Louis' heresy. "Well, Louis, labor and management will ask why Tony has been refusing to agree to join the Avengers. Obviously I was persuaded several times, but I finally refused. It's all about you. Mommy FK." Fury threw the earphones on the ground angrily, and stomped hard a few times. "Director, pay attention to your image," Phil Coulson reminded. "Pay attention to what image? Louis is against us at all. If Louis is really against us, we are not opponents at all." Phil Coulson was stating a fact. Hawkeye, Black Widow, General Ross, Chicken Pecking Rice Nod. Chapter 123. Looking at the group of Avengers who didn't want to be enemies with Louis at all, Fury could only sigh angrily. If only Louis would join the Avengers. At that time, I must expel these people. Louis alone can do it all. Laboratory. Tony and Louis are still discussing various data of the aerospace carrier. Louis is very interested. The most important point is that Louis also wants to build such a large combat delivery weapon. Ethan and Banner also came to the lab. "Ethan, Bruce, long time no see." Louis said hello. Ethan looked a lot darker. As for Banner, with a big beard on his face, he couldn't see his previous appearance at all. "Mr. Louis! Mr. Louis!" The two shouted in unison. "Ah, by the way, let me introduce a new colleague to you." Louis pulled Caecilius over and introduced to Ethan and Banner new colleague. The two said in unison, looking at Caecilius. Even Tony was a little surprised, he thought Caecilius was Fury's man. Unexpectedly, it was actually brought by Louis. "This is Caecilius." Louis briefly introduced. "Hi, I'm Ethan, majoring in mechanical physics, professor of physics at the University of Pennsylvania, visiting professor. I'm Bruce, majoring in nuclear physics, working under Mr. Louis." Seeing Ethan and Banner introducing themselves, Caecilius was a little restrained for a while. Ethan seems to be just a common man, but this guy named Bruce has great power in his body. Sure enough, there is no shortage of talents under Mr. Louis. Moreover, both are physicists, which makes Caecilius feel that he is at a disadvantage in terms of academic qualifications. He could only bite the bullet and introduce, "My name is Caecilius, and I am a follower of Mr. Louis." The two looked at Caecilius, waiting for the follow-up development, but Caecilius really had nothing to say. "Ethan, Banner. Go on, what about the followers?" Neither of them believed that Louis would bring back a completely useless person. "Just kidding, Louis is not such a good person who would take in strangers with such kindness." At least the title of Best Citizen in the United States has not been awarded to Louis. So, there must be something special about this guy named Caecilius. Do you have any occupation? Like physicist? Or something else? Specialty, ability? Ethan asked. I can do magic. Caecilius found something he knew. Are you sure it's magic? Not magic. It's magic. Caecilius said, and then a magic circle appeared in his hand. You can try it, it won't hurt you, it's a defensive magic. The magic circle in Caecilius' hands, not to mention Ethan and Banner, Tony was dumbfounded. Ethan punched tentatively, only feeling that he was hitting a hard steel plate. Is it really magic? It's impossible, we have to believe in science. This is indeed magic. I have also learned a little during this time. Louis casually constructed a magic circle in front of him. Seeing everyone was dumbfounded. Fury, who was watching the monitor, blurted out the phrase "mere fake." Grunt. The others also swallowed their saliva for a while. Louis actually learned magic, and this guy has become stronger again. Does this make sense? Is there any law in this? You are so strong, you still go to learn magic? Is it bad to be a person? Where did you learn magic? Please tell me, I want to learn it too. That's what you fellow Avengers think. Hawkeye and Black Widow are envious. Compared with other monsters, they are real humans. Ethan, Banner, and even Tony wanted to join in the fun with this idea. Learning magic depends on ability. Caecilius was not used to being surrounded by the enthusiasm of the three people. Louis and I are the same father, let's look at mine first, he has the ability, and I must not be bad. Tony said. Caecilius nodded, and a small magic circle of magic ability was pressed on Tony's hand. Then to Tony's hopeful gaze, Caecilius shook his head. I'm sorry, Mr. Tony, but you don't have magical abilities. No, it's impossible, Louis has it, why don't I? Okay, bro Tony, everyone's ability is different, your ability is on the mechanical armor. Louis comforted. God closed a door for you, and he opened a window for you. Then why do you have two abilities? Tony was not convinced. Because my ability cannot fit in a house. Louis pretended to be deep, making people want to beat him. Asterisk my ability is the sea of stars. Monitoring room. General Ross said dissatisfiedly, the old man wants to beat this kid. Steve came back from the hospital, and when he saw Louis say such words, he also felt itchy hands, and nodded in agreement. Hawkeye, Black Widow, and Phil Coulson looked at the two men in horror. I respect you as a man, go, I will raise your relatives. Forget it, life is important, don't pretend anymore. Following Tony, neither Ethan nor Banner have been detected to have magical abilities. It made Tony feel better. However, this can only be attributed to the fact that there are really very few people in the world who possess magical abilities. After the farce ended, the magician mage Caecilius was also accepted into Louis' armor research team. After all, not all armor is mechanical armor, and some are armor of supernatural power. As members of Louis' group, Ethan and Banner are treated well here. Both of them have an annual salary of 500, good jows, $10,000, and they are employed in this project as invited experts. Banner is in the nuclear power team. To support such a large aerospace carrier, the power source required is not a small number. So, the best choice is naturally arc reactor. This requires an arc reactor with a suitable file size, and at least it needs to support such a big guy to stand by for more than 20 days in the sky. Ethan is in the power structure distribution team, which is a team that needs help everywhere. As for Tony, as the chief planner, he and a large group of researchers cooperated with J.A.R.V.I.S to create such a huge aerospace aircraft carrier. With the files left by Howard Stark, Tony completed the rough design in just 20 days. When Louis came today, the plan had been in operation for almost a week. Louis, come and build this big guy together. Tony invited. Chapter 124. There is no shortage of people here for Tony, and he invited Louis only because Tony saw interest in Louis' eyes. Louis is very interested in such a big project. Even, Tony dared to directly conclude that if given the opportunity, Louis would build such a behemoth. Inviting Louis to join is just to give Louis a little more experience. Louis saw what Tony was up to, but shook his head anyway. I don't mind, I have to be busy with other things recently. Louis refused. If he had the chance, he would naturally not mind, but in order to deal with the coming crisis. Louis still has a lot to do, like Loki and his Chitauri Legion. According to the plot, the aerospace aircraft carrier will be built before then, and Louis tentatively estimates the time of Loki's arrival, which will be about a year later. Although I am not optimistic about aerospace aircraft carriers, but after all, S.H.I.E.L.D gave money. If you have money, you don't make ABD. But Louis would not put his hope of fighting the crisis on the current SHIELD. Can only hope they last a little longer. Okay, then go about your business. I will give you a copy of the information here. After all, this is also a design invention of Stark Industries. 220 Tony laughed. Thank you very much. Louis nodded. Mr. Louis, can I quit my job here and follow you? Banner asked suddenly. He was not used to working here. The most important thing is to hide his identity and often see the face of his enemy, General Ross. Banner felt that he couldn't help it, so he went up and beat Ross up. That would inevitably expose his identity and cause trouble for Mr. Louis. Louis understood what Banner meant. The green titan blood in his body could not be completely controlled, and once rage, he would still enter the transformation state uncontrollably. Then follow me. Louis nodded. Banner's resignation application was quickly accepted. Fury has no way to disagree. Although he is very greedy for these two physicists, the physicists are not missing. There's no need to have trouble with Louis because of one person. As for Ethan, his goal is to make his hometown better, so Ethan needs the 5 million salary more than Banner. Louis left the manufacturing base, and after leaving the warning range, Louis felt that all surveillance eyes disappeared uniformly. It seems that Fury is still very good. Louis opened the door to the space and returned to the Stark building. This isn't the first time Banner has seen something related to space, and Louis' previously shown space barrier is one of them. But with the help of Sling Ring, the door of space opened by magic also made Banner feel magical. Is this magic? Banner asked enviously. This is a space door opened by a magic item. Sling Ring, which belongs to a kind of space magic. Caecilius introduced. He felt that Banner was also a strong man, although he looked weak on the outside. The three came to the laboratory. Caecilius is more or less used to this high-tech style, and there are no such things in Camartage. Louis took out the wizard's ring, and the aura of flame magic on it made Cassila look sideways at it. This is a very powerful magical device. However, what is Mr. Louis planning to do with this magic tool? The wizard belt appeared around Louis' waist, and the ring-wearing left hand pressed against the belt. The magic armor appeared in front of his eyes, quietly suspended in the air, and the powerful magic aura made even Banner, who didn't know magic, feel frightened. If such an aura strikes at him, he might immediately enter a transformation state to protect himself. This is a transformation caused by the body's defense mechanism, which comes from fear and fear. Is this the new armor? Banner looked at the wizard's perfect curves, and the crystal decoration, a fee, that looked expensive. He doesn't think it's just a decoration. What surprised Banner was that he had never seen the blueprints for this suit of armor, nor had he heard what Ethan had to say. What Ethan said the most is that Louis drew 7 design drawings, 5 of which are the current 555 series armor. This is the Wizard series armor. The Magic series armor I recently made using the Magic Circle, and the Mechanical series armor are 2 production methods. Louis explained. Mr. Louis built this. Caecilius was dumbfounded. Mr. Louis can actually create such a powerful magic item, I am sure I am not mistaken. This is definitely something that only sages in the wizarding world are qualified to forge. Is this built during this time? Banner looked confused. How long has Mr. Louis been away? A month? Now that you have learned magic, you can also build armor? Banner suddenly felt that it took him a month to come up with a basic prototype of Force, which was a bit too useless. Seeing Banner's stricken expression, Louis finally didn't say anything, and it took him 7 years to create it. Because the wizard needs to absorb too much magic energy, for a long time, Louis has been painting the magic circle. This is a big project. But this time, calling Banner and Caecilius over at the same time, Louis also has his own plans. Louis took out the URU paper depicting the magic alchemy circle and handed it to Caecilius. Caecilius, look at this, it has something to do with the armor you are going to build next, Louis said. This is it. Caecilius took a look, he was dumbfounded, and his words were a little incomplete. This is the Devil's Alchemy Array. Louis said in a deep voice. But, Well, this Caecilius was a little worried, but his eyes did not leave the magic circle. This has the secret of eternal life, at least this is one of the secrets of eternal life. It depends on how you use it, Lewis said. Although the current Caecilius pursues eternal life, he has not yet reached the point where he is forced to embrace darkness completely. This magic circle is also a means used by Lewis to test Caecilius. If Caecilius was aroused by the secret of immortality, Lewis didn't mind killing one more. Send him to reunite with Modu. Don't worry, Mr. Lewis, I will definitely not let you down. Caecilius immediately swore his allegiance. Lewis is his belief, how could he betray his belief? What's more, Lewis trusts him so much, and entrusts him with all the forbidden techniques in the magic circle, so Caecilius' belief is even deeper. Banner couldn't understand, but he was still very envious. He looked at Lewis eagerly, and finally couldn't help asking, Mr. Lewis, what do I need to do? Chapter 125. Seeing Banner's appearance, Lewis smiled knowingly. Banner is also worried that he will become useless in Lewis' team, so he is very nervous now. Force still needs to trouble you, don't think about the combat ability, I just need it to be more suitable for fighting in the universe, this is the key point. Lewis said. I have been doing all of these. According to the materials of the Aerospace Research and Development Department of Stark Industries, I found some materials that can block cosmic rays, which perfectly match the surface coating of Force. Banner introduced. I don't know much about combat types, so I'm not good at many weapon systems. If you are not good at it, you can go to the Armor Department of Stark Industries, they are all from the Weapon Research and Development Department, and they will help you. Any more questions? Lewis asked. No, I will finish the Force armor in the shortest possible time. Banner suddenly said loudly. Don't be so anxious, take your time. Men didn't care much about Force. Force's combat ability is not very strong, even in the universe, Lewis can use other armor to fight. But Force's resistance ability in some special places in the universe is what other armors don't have. Caecilius, understand this magic circle carefully. When you understand it, you and Banner will cooperate to make a set of armor. Lewis' tone became serious. This is his purpose. Let Caecilius be in charge of the magic part, let Banner be in charge of the armor part, and finally combine and match. Because too many armors are the product of the combination of special abilities and mechanical armor. When Ethan is done with the follow-up, Lewis is also ready to let Ethan join in. Lewis knew the magic circle by himself, and it took 7 years to build the armor. Caecilius and Banner would probably be a little faster together. It's a pity that there is no way for them to use the time acceleration space. The flow of time will affect them, and not everyone is immune to time like Louis. After receiving Lewis' instructions, both Banner and Caecilius got busy. Lewis said it was easy, but it was not a small challenge for the two of them. Banner is okay, Caecilius was fascinated when he saw the magic circle. But at the same time, he is also very aware of the difficulty. The reason why Lewis gave this magic circle to Caecilius was naturally because Caecilius was very interested in such magic. At the same time, it is also because Caecilius needs this. He is pursuing immortality, but this magic alchemy map secretly has a possibility of eternal life. In fact, Lewis didn't really believe in Caecilius, insisting that Caecilius was the one who betrayed Yi. Only when there is interest, will such a person have the motivation to do things. Louis didn't tell them what armor they were going to build next, lest they get too ambitious. After arranging the things at hand, Lewis made a trip to Holy Place. Sling Ring can shuttle to any place, including Holy Place. This leads to the multi-universe, and no one knows what will be inside. Maybe it's a parallel world, maybe it's a barren world. It is imprisoned by the magic of Ancient One, so that no one can pry into the mystery. Crunch! Lewis pushed open the door, and Wang started his old business here as a librarian. The collection of books from New York to Holy Place is not much worse than that of Camartage, but the time of existence is not too long. Many of the classics were written by the disciples of Camartage, and more of them are about the use of various magic skills. Mr. Lewis, you are here. Wang stood up and said. Take me to my room. Lewis said. I had just arrived at the Holy Place before, because Caecilius followed Lewis, and Wang did not take Lewis to walk through the entire Holy Place, and what I saw was only the simplest first floor, second floor, and basement. The third floor where Lewis lives is entrusted with the real secret of the Holy Place. Only the future Supreme Mage can live here, and the Ancient One is now handed over to Lewis. When Louis thought of this, he could only smile helplessly and followed behind Wang. The space on the third floor looks much smaller than downstairs, but it is actually a space inside another space. Such outstanding space technology is naturally also the work of Ancient One Mage. Excellent space magic. Louis couldn't help but admire. If Luigi used the space gem to make it, it could be done, but it's not easy enough. Walking into the real third floor, you will see a long corridor, the first door opens, and this is an ordinary-looking room. Not even a bedroom, no bed, no chair, only magic props, alchemy equipment and various magic materials. In other words, this place is for real magicians. For Louis, who is not interested in the above, it will feel very monotonous. Louis flipped through the bookshelves, his expression became exciting again. Is this the Book of Emperor Weishan and the Book of the Dark God? Louis did not expect that Ancient One actually put the Book of Emperor Weissand and the Book of Darkness here. No wonder later, I did not find these two books in Kamartaj's library. Ancient One really believed in himself. Maade, the favors owed are really increasing. Whether it's to holy place, or two spellbooks, it's a great gift. When Louis saw this, he knew that he would not go back, and he didn't want to go back. These two books can completely construct an entire magic system. In the whole bedroom, the most attractive thing is the round window with 4 curved lines. The seal of Emperor Weishan. This is the last protective force of the holy place, built with the power of the Book of Weissandi. It's no wonder that Ancient One sent the Book of Weishandi here. Since it is felt that New York is the first city to suffer a crisis, the safety of holy place is of paramount importance. Louis walked out of the bedroom, and any of the items inside would be huge amounts of wealth if taken outside. But Ancient One gave them all to himself. Mr. Louis, are you still satisfied? Wang asked, obviously asking for Ancient One. Thank you Ancient One Mage for me, these are very important to me. Louis nodded. Hearing what Louis said, Wang also breathed a sigh of relief. Since Louis said so, it means that he accepted Ancient One's kindness. In a way, Kamartaj has already bonded with Louis. In fact, Wang didn't know why Ancient One Mage trusted Louis so much. Was it really because Ancient One Mage accidentally snooped on some secrets? Wang still remembered that when he told Ancient One Mage his doubts, Ancient One Mage said this to him.
If you're enjoying the story so far and want to hear the next parts, don't forget to like the video. It really helps the channel grow. And if you'd like me to continue the series, drop a comment below letting me know. Your feedback and support keep these audiobooks going strong. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.